Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another epic evening of entertaining racing action in the Race by Wire Porsche Cup, as brought to you on the Premier Sim Racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing, and proudly sponsored by none other than Energise Virtual Solutions. And it's time for round number 8 to 10, and we've remained this week in the US of A, and indeed in the US state of Florida, but we have made our way southwards in the Daytona International Speedway to one of arguably the premier circuits, not just in the US of A, but in the world, because it is none other than the Sebring International Raceway that plays host today. A circuit that has been in place since December 1950 on the site of the former military airfield known as the Hendricks Army Air Base. It is a circuit that continues every year to pay tribute to its original use case. 3.74 miles in length and with very little elevation change, but 17 corners that are an eclectic mix of hairpins, sweepers and direction changes. You would already think this is going to be an epic circuit. But what exactly makes it stand tall amongst most? Well, it is a circuit which has plenty of road surface changes. Indeed, this circuit has retained for the best part of a third of its length the old concrete transitional surfaces, which we did see all the way back in its former use case of being a military airfield. Therefore, for our drivers, whilst 2/3 of the lap is smooth asphalt, much like you'd expect on any modern day circuit, when they come to the final third of the lap, they'll find themselves transitioning onto that concrete, and it will be absolutely suspension shattering and will cause our drivers to shudder inside their racing cockpits. For our drivers, much like their cars, it's just as much about outlasting the Sebring circuit. It is about outrunning your rivals here, and some say it's a bigger test of endurance than Le Mans itself. It's no wonder why in March of every year we do see drivers around the globe make their way to this circuit for the 12 hours of Sebring, and it's seen as the preparation race for it's the 24 hours of Le Mans a little bit later on in the year. But who exactly here today shall outlast and endure the bumps of Sebring to take victory in our gold and silver classes? Well, that's what we're here to find out as we bring you all the racing action live from circuit side. Well, my man has allowed me to welcome you to this live broadcast as you tune in tonight on the one and only place you can catch all the racing action from the official Race by Wire series. And that, of course, is on YouTube at youtube.com and search for Race by Wire RBW, and you can be catching it there week in, week out. And don't be shy, feel free to say hi as we do say hello to a few of you, including none other than Nick DeBeck there, who's here today cheering on none other than Glenn Gondoliers as per usual. And I hope you're doing well, Nick. And to anybody who's tuning in right now who hasn't said hello, but you have the ability to do so, you're more than welcome to. Don't be shy, feel free to say hi, because the only biting you'll see here today is biting on the brakes, and indeed if our drivers bite too hard they'll understeer wide with the anti-lock braking systems, carrying them deep into the corners. In the content booth you have myself, my name is Paul Walsh, and I'll be bringing you all your racing action as it unfolds as always. And in terms of our schedule for tonight, times in Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT, or Universal Coordinate Time UTC, as we can see in approximately 13 minutes time we'll be making our way into our qualifying session, 10 minutes in duration, due to get underway at 8 o'clock this evening, after which we make our way straight to the grid for the first of our two races. Up first will be the 12-minute sprint race at 8:10, where all the drivers have a limited number of laps to try and go for victory, and after that we take a brief breather before returning to the grid at just after 8:25 this evening for our 30-minute feature race. 2.5 times the length of the sprint, 2.5 times the expected action, and come the end of it all, some major points will be going somebody's way, but who exactly will be heading into the final two rounds of the season with their championship charge taking flight, and who meanwhile find themselves grounded? Well, that's what we're here to find out tonight. And without further ado, let's give you a recap of the season so far and what's in store for this round. And as we can see, well, we've made our way around the globe, and it's interesting that we are now back to what is Florida once again. Indeed, we have completed 3 rounds in this American state. Of course, round number 1 at Miami is where we opened things up all the way back in December of 2025. And then we, of course, made our way around the globe from Brazil to France to Georgia in the US of A, through to Italy. And now we are completing a double header in America. And after this, we'll not be visiting the United States of America any more this season. But here we are then, the 18th of February. It's time for Sebring International Raceway International out, but last time out we were a little bit northwards in Daytona's International Speedway's road course. And now on the 11th of February, what exactly did we get to see when it came to podiums and winners? Well, it was a round that was completely shaken around, because we got to see, with the slipstream orientated nature of Daytona, a complete upheaval of expectations. Now, there were some obvious things expected. Oscar Berntsson was not on the grid, one of your major contenders in the Gold Drivers' Championship. However, he had unexpectedly missed Imola, so therefore it was more damage being done to his championship charge. And the two names at the very top of the gold class, Bjørklund and Matt Strand, the thought process was that they would be using Daytona to absolutely inflict as much damage on Berntsson as they would to each other. However, that was not the case, because instead, a different name took both victories in both races, and it was none other than Josh Boot, who absolutely delivered in absolute madness of both races. Because, of course, what really disrupted things at the front of the field was a silver star in the form of Matt Sprell, who on his open lap in qualifying went around as we were giving him praise, and then after that, the commentator's curse was lifted immediately because he put himself all the way on pole position by 11 thousandths over Andy Jones, and then suddenly when we went racing, it was Sprell and Boot in the sprint race who made it come down to only 6 thousandths of the finish line. It went the way of Boot, although the timing tower did say that Sprell had won it, but after count back and after checking the laser timing line, it was Josh Boot who had taken that first win. Then winding our way on forward into the second race of the day, that feature race, we saw it all again with our inverted grid. Even with that top 10 inversion, we got to see both Josh Boot and Matt Sprell charge through to take the lead of their respective classes. For Sprell, it was a bit easier compared to Boot's campaign, because in the silver class, he made his way into full place overall, and he was all by himself for the remainder of the race distance and enjoyed a very lonely race and made it a perfect score. Meanwhile, in the gold class, it came down to the names of three: Matt Strand, Simon Bamber and Josh Boot, and then it came down to two, only Boot and Strand right towards the very end, and in the end Josh Boot had to be a little bit unconventional on his final lap and making sure to take some awkward lines in order to be able to hold on for that victory and make it a perfect score for himself. But now that we've gone back to a bit more of a traditional circuit where it's not just as much about the slipstream, it's more about your cornering capabilities and being bold under braking and overtaking. Will we see Josh Boot lead the way in gold? Will we see Matt Sprell once again lead the way in silver? Or will we see some of the big names at the very top of our championship standings come back to light? Well, that's what we're here to find out today. And of course, after today, in a week's time, on the 25th of February, we'll make our way to Germany for the Hockenheimring Baden-Württemberg's Grand Prix circuit. But talking about the standings then, we told you who the winners were last time out, but how exactly have the standings been shaken up at Daytona? And goodness me, they have been shaken, ladies and gentlemen. We start with the Gold Drivers' Championship, and here we can see that Kim André Bjørklund right now for Sebring Racing Norway on 205 points. He is only 2 ahead of Matt Strand, who has closed the gap just that little bit. The two separated only by a single point of difference at Daytona, and it was that single point that went the way of the ice cold racing by Max Sim Racing driver. Both of them, though, it was a missed opportunity. They both expected it to be a tough day at Daytona, and they both experienced exactly what they expected, albeit I do believe that Matt Strand took a bit more encouragement by comparison, particularly when we spoke to him in his post-round interview, given the fact he was able to match Kim André Bjørklund's qualifying time. They were dead even in qualifying, and then after that he was the one who was able to make a little bit more progress, particularly in the feature. Josh Boot, meanwhile, he's catapulted his way up into third on 186 points with the perfect score. He's only 2 ahead of Oscar Berntsson, who'll be back in full force today, and do not rule out the ice cold racing by MaxSimRacing.com driver, because he's now got to achieve perfect scores every step of the way to the finish, and he's got to hope that his rivals drop points by comparison. Then we do have Richard Simnor sat in 5th place at the moment for DCW Racing Blue, coming alive at Daytona, and right now moving into 5th place ahead of his teammate of Andy Jones, who sits a further 14 points behind in 6th. And then we do have the trio from DCW Racing Blue completed by Paddy Falconer, who's in 7th there on 92 points. He's 7 ahead of Simon Bamber for Effect Simulations, and then we do have Mikey Pollard for Film BIL.NO Thrill Sport Racing, 4 points ahead of Nick Clemens for iRace Esports. We got to see Nick Clemens have a bit of fun out there last time out. He did iRace Esports, really enjoyed themselves at Daytona, and then we did see Joe Newman there, not on the grid last time out, at the Empire Motorsport driver drop into 11th, but still ahead of Ryan Davies, who gave it a go, albeit didn't quite work out at Daytona. And then from his teammate all the way through to Jack Atkinson there in a 13th place, the privateer, on 66 points, 4 ahead of Daniel Shilcott. Gavin Petty, Casper Tunstead, Andy Archer and Helder Gonzalez complete your Gold Drivers' Championship. And after looking at that, well, let's make our way to the silver class. And here we can see when we change things to the silvers, it's very close at the top there as well. Glenn Gondoliers right now, perhaps the most consistent in the last few rounds by comparison with his peers, although Adam Klanvik would have argued that he's been more consistent, and that would definitely be correct there until we got to Daytona, and Glenn Gondoliers has been able to hold his lead at 9 points for Pegasus Sim Racing over Adam Klanvik. Now for Klanvik, not on the grid today as I understand it, so therefore Klanvik will be dropping this round, and therefore his next highest score, or next lowest score we should say, is 12 points from round number 2. So Klanvik knows this is a 0, and every point after today in Germany and our season finale in round number 10, he's got to score the maximum possible. So Grundle today, indeed all the other silvers would know they need to try and find a way to score the maximum. One of which, Emma Ryu, only a further 3 points behind there for ERR by the organisation. It was looking so good for Emma. After the sprint race, where it was a decent result for her, no doubt about it, whereas Grundle took a 6th in the sprint and really had to make his way from the back of the field after not qualifying. Meanwhile, by comparison, Ryu finished in 5th place, although she seemed to be very off at the pace in qualifying, but was able to make her way through. And then it was looking very good in the feature, batting in a three-way fight between herself, Glenn Gondoliers, and Alan McCain, and that was all fighting for P2 in the silver class until an unfortunate instant saw what was McCain and Ryu make contact. Ryu went to the barrier, but she held on and made it to the finish, but unfortunately with the damage fell all the way to an 8th place finish, so therefore some major points lost right at a critical moment. But that's your top 3, and outside the top 3, a further 21 points behind, it is Ollie Pimley for Go Squadron Esports, who did quite well at Daytona, just ahead of Aaron Herbert, who had a difficult day and had a technical retirement in race number 2 very early on, and that completely opened up the door to the podium places. The Drive Lounge Racing driver, meanwhile, only the best part of 7 points ahead of Krista Halsoy, and then we do have Chris Cole, Matt Spurrell, Alan McCain, and Derek Biggerdike there completing your top 10, but as we can see, the points gap between those drivers very narrow until you do get to the gap between McCain and Biggerdike, which expands to the best part there of none other than what we 33 points. Ben Sieber sits in 11th, best the rest there for DCW Racing Yellow on 75, 2 ahead of Ram Van Hoot, and we do have Alexandre Longjou for Blue Mercure Racing, not having the happiest day at the office last time out, even though he gave it his best. He's in 13th on 64 points. It's a further 2 to Burton Torf's the Yentl Drive, and then we do have Mark Collicott in 15th. And well, from speaking to the rest of the team at DCW Racing Red earlier on today, unfortunately, the practice he's been putting in, week out, and indeed he's been dedicating a lot of time to this series, ladies and gentlemen. It's not quite paid off with the number of points he's been able to haul in so far, but hopefully, for the remainder of the season, he might be able to see an uptick in his luck. But he's definitely had a lot of bad luck, and it's not through lack of practice, I can tell you that. Matty Wild sits behind only result countback for DCW Racing Yellow. Sadly, we're not going to be seeing him on the grid today due to personal circumstances, but all's well with him as I'm to understand it. And then we do have Ritzio Penzo in 17th there, further 8 behind, 7 ahead of Nido Braun. And then we do have Nicholas Grunstrom and Mirzam Jutsupov completing the top 20. And in 21st, it's Dave Van Dam ahead of Timo Gertner, who complete your Silver Drivers' Championship standings. But from our standings then, let's talk about our host circuit for today, because we've given you the story in the past, but now let's come back to the present. And as we do, we are here racing at the Sebring International Circuit, located near the town from which it takes its name in the Highlands County of the US state of Florida. A huge thank you to iRacing.com, not just their brilliant circuit maps, but also the absolutely fantastic simulator. But speaking about those circuit maps, you can see it on screen here. And a 2-dimensional map, exactly what we need, because this circuit has minimal elevation change, owing because of the fact it is based on the site of a former airfield. And the funny fact of the matter is, if you do go slightly southeast, so away from the Mont corner at the bottom of the diagram, and make your way southeastwards, you'll find yourself making your way to Sebring Domestic National Airport, or Sebring Regional Airport as it's formerly known. And indeed, this circuit is still on the site of a commercial runway today. However, the old tarmac, or old concrete, which is used by the bomber aircraft in the Second World War, that has been retired, and it has been reserved for the right to be used for this racing circuit on an annual basis. But as our drivers roar the way around, they'll head down that start-finish straight 9. They'll be bouncing over the concrete seams before they make their way into a gender-being bend at turn number 1. Through the long, sweeping, fast left-hander there, named after the infamous Belgian driver, who was one of the very first winners of endurance races here on a notable fashion. Well, as they make way out to turn number 1 and up towards turns 2 and 3, it'll be hard onto the brakes at turn number 3, where the circuit will narrow and they'll transition onto the asphalt. There, from the left, right, left, they'll come out to turn number 5, very tricky corner to get right with a late apex, and they'll go full throttle for a big bend and all the way down to the hairpin at turn number 7. Aptly named, as they exit out of there, they need to straight line the kinks before making their way through Manuel Fangio corner at turns 8 and 9. Up to the braking zone they go for Cunningham at turn number 10, the sharp right-angled right-hander, and then through Collier flat out, all the way up towards Tower, where it's hard on the brakes once more, but try and carry as much speed to that late apex as you dare. Coming out to the right-hander of turn 13, it's then flat out through Bishop Bend as they make their way back onto the old concrete slabs, and then coming all the way down through the Le Mans sequence of turns 15 and 16, where in early days of racing, drivers would get lost. We'll tell you more about that later on if there's a chance. Once the drivers come all the way down through there, through the right-hander, they'll then make their way onto the Allman Straight, the back stretch, before roaring their way in towards Sunset Bend, named aptly so because when the sun sets, it's blinding to drivers, and as they come through the long right-hander, going as late as possible towards the apex, they'll then come across that start-finish line straight once again to either complete the lap or complete the race. And now a reminder of the rules before we go racing. In terms of setups, this is an open setup series, with drivers bringing the setup of their choosing to each and every race day session. Qualifying-wise, we will see a closed qualifying format being used, where drivers have an isolated instance of the circuit in which to deliver their best possible lap, and they have their outlap plus 4 flying laps available within the 10 minutes. And when the lap times around here are literally 2-minute zeros, you can understand the fact that really does mean our drivers will only be getting in 3 valid laps at most. In terms of the race, we will be setting the grid for the sprint based on qualifying. When we go to the feature race, we set it based on results of the sprint, but we invert the top 10 finishing positions. What that means in layman's terms is that the winner of the sprint race will be starting in 10th place of the feature, and we continue that inversion until we get to the 10th place finisher from the sprint. They start on pole for the purposes of what will be the feature race, and those who finish a length and downwards, you guessed it right, they start exactly where they finished. Meanwhile, the races commenced by a standing start. We had rolling starts last time out due to the safety nature of Daytona, but here today we're back to standing starts as the tradition of Porsche Cup racing, and we shall see drivers pick up a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 17 or more instant points. Now, as we make our way back to circuit side and we're about to make our way into qualifying, there's just time for us to give a quick shout out to our title sponsor for this season, of course, and that is Energise Virtual Solutions. Now, for those not in the know, Energise Virtual Solutions, or EVS, is a software consultancy whose aim is to meet the demands of bespoke product services and development. Whether it's a completely new project or consultancy assistance on existing projects, Energise Virtual Solutions will be working alongside you every step of the way. And if you'd like to know more about what they can do for you, do head to energisevirtual.com today to find out plenty more. But a big thank you to them for being our title sponsor for this season, and without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, as our drivers get ready to make their way back into the pit lane, because the practice session is complete, I can tell you one thing, Josh Booth right now, well, he has been absolutely galvanised by his performances at Daytona. He's been the fastest driver in the practice session by the tune of none other than what is 1400s in golden overall, with Oscar Berntsson and Bjørklund close behind. And meanwhile, in the silver class, it has been Matt Sprell on the provisional pole of practice, just ahead of Chris Cole. We're getting flashbacks here to Daytona already, but without further ado, well, let's head into qualifying and see how they all get on over the 10 minutes. So the clock begins to tick away, and a grand total of 20 drivers have made the way here today. If my numbers are correct, we do see Glenn Gondoliers making his way out the pit lane. We'll see plenty of them do so very quickly, very shortly. Now, you might be wondering, well, what's the aim here? Do you want to be on pole? Well, obviously you do, but how important is it is perhaps the better way to phrase it. The importance of pole position here at Sebring is quite high. Now, overtaking is possible at the circuit. It is not easy, but nor is it difficult. It all comes down to where you attack in order to be able to make the potential move. For example, Genderby and Bend is a circuit you can defend just as well as you can attack into. Meanwhile, the run down towards the hairpin here, this can get very interesting, whether a drive defense on the inside or the outside, and then the run up towards Cunningham. Well, at turn number 10 there, we've got plenty of overtaking opportunities as well, and down the back section from Tower all the way through to Le Mans and on the Allman Straight in towards Sunset, they're all valid overtaking spots. So therefore, if you don't get on pole position, it's not as though you are locked into track position for the rest of the race. This is not one of those circuits where overtaking is frustratingly hard, but it is a circuit where defending is just as comfortable as attacking, so it really is the ideal circuit for what is interesting racing. And that's why it plays host to domestic, national and international racing, from what is club level sprints all the way through to international endurance races on an annual basis. Sebring is absolutely loved, and also is one of the premier circuits for unveiling new racing machinery. Indeed, many of you may remember when Corvette did announce the arrival of what would be their GT3 challenger into IMSA, none other than the Corvette Z06 GT3R Stingray based on the Corvette C8 platform, and also Ford introduced their new Ford Mustang GT3 challenger based on the 9th generation platform of the Ford Mustang. They were both unveiled here in their initial testing, and well, on American soul, the sound of V8 absolutely ringing true. But here today, we don't have the sound of V8s. Instead, we have the screaming score of what is none other than flat 6 4-litre machinery from our Porsche 992.2 GT3 Cup cars, and we're very happy to hear them roar around these premier Porsche Super Cup racing machinery. And well, as we do see Oscar Berntsson make his way through Sunset Bend, bouncing his way around there, and to be very careful those transitions. He makes way from concrete seam to concrete seam. Well, now let's jump on board with him for a flying lap. He's made his way down towards turn number 1 then. His first flying lap here, he's got his tyres warmed up into Genderby, and he goes. Dropping onto the brakes, down to 4th gear, and then off the brakes and keep the car nice and tight to the wall, and now back on the throttle immediately here as he makes his way onto the asphalt. Bring the car through the Kinker 2 and onto the brakes for turn number 3. 150 metres from corner apex, rolling his way to the apex, and now coming through turn number 4 and in towards 5, keeping over to the right to open up the corner and avoiding touching the apex curve there as much as possible because of the sensitivity of the suspension, and now flat out through turn number 6. Heading through Big Bend, he'll get ready to go into the braking zone for turn number 7 shortly, looking to his left-hand side for his brake marker cone, and it will be the very first one. They're braking just before it, about 170 metres from corner apex down to 1st gear, trail braking in, and now as he makes way out, building up the throttle very quickly, straight line in the kinks on the exit of the hairpin, so that way he straightens it out and picks up as much speed as possible, and now through Fangio. Flat out here, all the way up to the left-hand side, so that way he can get on the brakes nice and late as possible for what will be Cunningham Bend, braking about 150 metres from quarter apex. Down to second gear now, flat out all the way, but going up into two wheels there as he comes for 11. Got to be careful of that. Understeers a little bit wide. That's cost him about a tenth or two. And now onto the brakes he goes in towards tower. And you brake there, essentially the exit at 12 to set up 13. Into third gear he goes. A lovely upshift there, really neutralising the amount of wheel spin on the rear wheels, giving this car its rear engine rear wheel drive. And going through turn number 14 at Bishop. Well, right now, can he prove himself to be the king here as he makes his way onto the brakes? He does so. Coming down to third gear there, and now through 15 into 16, using our space. That is legal. That is an allowed track limit there as the drivers make the way out. They can go quite wide there, but it is essentially one of those where there's no marker, but if they go too wide, they'll naturally start to understeer away from the corner, and they eventually will be considered as off track. So it's all about muscle memory there as he now makes his way down Allman, up into top gear, heading upwards of 157 miles an hour as he goes onto the brakes, about 100 metres from the corner entry point based on the cones, and now rolling his way down the third gear, close to ward exit, powering his way out here, full throttle all the way to the line. And for Oscar Berntsson, what sort of lap is it going to be? He very gradually makes his way over. He wants this to be a good representation lap, and the answer is going to be it's a 2-minute 0.336. It's a good start to his qualifying session for Oscar Berntsson. He puts himself on provisional pole so far by 2.5 tenths over Josh Boot, but we still do have at least 2 more laps for him, and indeed for most drivers here. And meanwhile, in the silver class, we do see Matt Sproul right now currently setting the boundaries for the silvers versus the golds, because it's 5 golds ahead of 5 silvers at the moment. You couldn't make it more poetic than that. And well, Jack Atkinson breaks up the order there as Bjørklund jumps up to third. Atkinson's in 9th, and we do see Mark Collicott there with that practice starting to pay off a little bit more. The 202.174 there in the number 77, and we look forward to seeing what he's going to be able to do and whether he can go a bit quicker on the next lap. But as he now makes his way down towards turn at number 3, well, we haven't quite seen everything we wanted to see from this driver so far this season, but understandably Collicott's not had the luck with him, and particularly some frustrating rounds earlier in the season. But right now he's got to put that frustration behind him and hope there's more to come today. But as we do look to Ollie Pimley here, the Ghost Project Esports driver in the number 29, and I can tell you one thing, whilst he may be fierce on circuit, a very friendly gentleman in person. I've had the pleasure of meeting Ollie on a couple of occasions, and an absolutely avid motorsport photographer as well. If you see him circuit side, you will normally see him with his camera, whether it's sunshine or rain. I can tell you one thing, he absolutely loves the smell of petrol and also loves getting a snap or two of racing machinery. But as he comes down in towards turn 7 at the moment, will he make his way into the fun now for next week? We'll have to wait and see. Will we get a snap of him or two? But as he powers his way onwards, well, right now he's still to get a valid lap on the board. Now we do say hello to a few more of you in the YouTube chat, including none other than Pims Plays Games. Good evening to you, good sir. Hope you're doing well. And we also do say hello to Ivan Sander, who is cheering on this man. Indeed, we do seem to have a bit of a fan group in the YouTube chat. Not that I'm complaining, I love to see fan groups, to be fair, for this man. Glenn Gondoliers, who right now the Silver Championship leader, and he'll be hoping today that he can put himself right back at the front from the outset and get control of the championship. Now, the one upside he does have a Matt Sproul being in front of him is Sproul has openly admitted in his post-round interview last week he won't be able to make all the rounds for the remainder of the season, and given the way the scores have gone, it does mean that Sproul is arguably a huge outsider for the championship now. It's a remote chance. What he'd have to do is essentially score maximum points in all the rounds he can attend, and everybody else would have to effectively score minimum points by comparison. So Gondoliers can always take that confidence in the fact that he currently is the fastest of the championship contenders at this time, but of course you never want to leave it up to fate if you can decide your own fate. But as he makes way through 5 and in towards 6 right now, Gondoliers has one more chance. 201.07 was his previous best. It was an improvement, but it didn't move him up the orders. Bjørklund jumps up to 4th now. Jack Atkinson improves to 9th place. Emma Ryu, meanwhile, the ERR by the organisation driver, well, she makes a way around one more time to come up, and as she does so, what's it going to be this time before we get on board with the 33 driver? And the answer is going to be, well, it was 10th, and now it's going to be no faster. But let's jump on board with Ryu, as it was an invalidated previous lap, and now she attacks the Sebring International Circuit one last time. We're going out to one there. Perfect corner initially. Now getting towards turn number 3. Chris Cole moves up to 12th place. Now 201.743 off camera. That's overall. But Ryu hopping and skipping away between the apexes. Car bouncing around there. And now making their way through turn at number 5. And I think it's those apex curves. You want to get as close as possible to them, but there's a very fine line between touching them and grazing them. And when you touch them with a wheel in particular, you end up bouncing the car on around. And that's the hardest thing that drivers had to get used to around here. Because in the previous generation, the 92.1, you want to mount those curves to a degree. It helps rotate the car through, whereas now you really want to avoid mounting the flatter ones, such as coming out the hairpin. They're fine. Meanwhile, the higher ones you definitely do not want to touch, because every time you cause the suspension of this car to recoil, you are losing time. The car needs to settle. Coming onto the brakes there. for Cannon Bend, all the way down to 59 miles an hour at apex. Now going through the left hand there, very nice run for 11 in towards 12. A little bit of oversteer, but she'll correct that nicely. And now going on to the brakes in towards Tower, goes in nice and late. That's a very nice line there from Ryu. And now getting ready for Bishop Bend at this point. Well, it's been a very good first two-thirds of lap, but now it's onto the concrete as she makes her way in towards the left into right here. Through Bishop, now onto the brakes for the first part of Le Mans. Got to avoid taking too much curve. If you get the front right tyre hooked around there, you will go spinning around. The same for the left-hander. Now open up turn number 16, the main part of Le Mans corner, and in the end get her absolutely right, keeping two wheels within the white lines and also two on the exit curb. As long as you don't touch the grass, you're fine. And now she makes her way all the way down Allman, getting ready for that final braking zone for what will be her last qualifying lap. And what can the Italian driver do now? Will go as late as humanly possible. Trail braking down to fourth, to third. Goes a little bit deep, but does correct. It decides to go for a V-shape approach there. Gets very close to the wall. Flat out through the exit. It'll be a slightly compromised line compared to the optimum line of the U-shape approach. But Ryu won't be too upset about that as she comes up through. And in the end, it's a 2-minute 0.9. It's a decent lap. It does put her fourth in at the silver class, but there are still fast laps out there. From Alan McCain, for example, who's really come alive in the late stage of this season. And Will McCain doing very well. Chris Cole doing okay. In fact, now he's doing better. Moves to a 2-minute 0.922. Only 14 thousandths off Ryu's time. Ollie Pimley right up there as well. And Fabrizio Penzo, well, he's done quite well in this qualifying session. One of his best so far of the season. He's gone at 7th in the silver class. So it is all looking good between several drivers here. And, well, meanwhile, are there any surprises? Well, perhaps the biggest one is Andy Jones down in 7th place overall. Or what is 6th in the gold class. Not quite able to mirror what he did at Daytona. He really absolutely demolished expectations at Daytona, putting himself in what a second in the gold class. But what's it going to be today as he gets himself set? They all get themselves set. In fact, he was pole of the gold class now, if memory is remembering correctly. And as we do see Kim Andre Bjørklund cooling on down. Well, that's it for qualifying, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to head to the grid and see how they all line up for the first of our two races here in round number 8 of the Race by Wire Porsche Cup. And so as our drivers make the way onto the grid, this is how they'll line up for the first of our two races at Sebring International Raceway. Here's Oscar Berntsson, who takes pole position there. He returns to the top after his absence for 2 rounds, and the ice cold racing by Maxim Racing driver is in a hurry because alongside on the front row, it will be none other than his teammate of Matt Strand. Behind the two drivers, it will then be Richard Simnor starting in third for DCW Racing Blue, once again putting himself right to the front, head of Kim Andre Bjørklund for Sim Racing Norway. So we do have several of our big contenders at the very front of the field, and Josh Boo adds himself to that on the third row and fifth for Atomic Esports. Matt Sparrow starts on silver pole position there for HRT Nexus Racing, carrying on from where he left off at Daytona. Andy Jones starts in 7th there for DCW Racing Blue, just ahead of Jack Atkinson Race by Wire. Then we do have Glenn Grondelier as the second of the silver, starting 9th in the company there of Alan McCain, with the Pegasus Sim Racing driver outpacing the iRace Esports machine by half a 10th. That's your top 10. Outside the top 10, 4th in silver, a length overall is Emma Ryu for ERR by the organisation. She'll be in the company there of Chris Cole, the privateer. And then we do have Ollie Pinley for Ghost Quadra Esports ahead of Fabrizio Penzo, the Italian driver. They're doing well and also almost matching in a way what was Ollie Pinley's time there, albeit to the gap of 2 tenths in the end. Alexandra Longju taking 15th there for BB1 Sim Racing, a 3 tenths behind, but the best part of a 10th ahead of David Biggerdike, with the DCW Racing Red driver completing your 8th row. And we do have Mark Collicott for DCW Racing Red behind his teammate, but ahead of the sister team machine of Ben Sieber for DCW Racing Yellow on the 9th row of the grid, and completing that top 20 and your 20 driver field here today, it is Rob Van Hoot, the privateer, the last of our qualifying drivers, and starting from the very back of the field, having not set a lap, Effect Simulation's Simon Bamber. And I wonder whether he's going to try and do it last the first challenge here. He's tried it in the past, and we look forward to seeing whether he can do it here today, because he's a very quick driver at Sebring from what we've seen in previous seasons and previous years. But still, he's at the back, he's got to come through. But right now, we come through to the front of the field, because here come the lights, ladies and gentlemen, for the first time today. It's 1, it's 2, it's 3, it's 4, it's firing lights. And 12 minutes of racing gets underway here for the first time as they roar the way down towards turn number 1. And as Oscar Berntsson immediately holds that lead in the middle of the road, Matt Strand tucks in behind him. So the two teammates trying to work together here as they come into Gender being Bend, albeit Kim Andre Bjørklund going for a move straight away. It's not going to work. Richard Simnor and Josh Boot there side by side as they exit, and now getting ready to go down towards turn number 3. Everyone's through the opening corner, but we see any moves under braking here. That's a bit of a cheeky move. There it is going to turn Josh Boot. That's going to turn Josh Boot around. That's going to turn Richard Simnor around. Boot there in contact with Simnor. Simnor goes to barrier, and also, who else is that? That's Matt Sproul into the barrier of HRT Racing Nexus. What exactly has happened to him? We'll get to get a replay of that, because I think he might have been collected there, and we've got a black flag for a jump start for Ben Sieber, as I'm to understand it. So therefore, there's been some drama before they've cleared the first 3 quarters. But meanwhile, more fighting going on as a big move on the braking there for Jack Atkinson, looking up the inside. of their exit machine of Alan McCain as they come out of the hairpin, now heading up towards turns 8, 9 and 10. Well, you can see that Atkinson get himself ahead, and McCain, I think, worried about Pimley, who's trying to make a move. Now Pimley looking one way then the other. It's not going to work at the moment, at least, as McCain goes defensive there. We see Chris Cole a bit further behind, holding off Longju, the BB1 sim racing driver, who's had a great start, to be fair to him, making some sturdy progress, and right now still trying to go on the attack. Right away off the apex is here, now coming in towards the next braking zone. Well, just in front, Pimley still fighting with McCain. He gets back ahead of McCain there, coming through turn number 13. Around the outside, he held that. That was a lovely bit of defensive driving there from Pimley, and full commitment as well as they power their way down the next stretch. But as they do, Bigger Dyke meanwhile side by side here with Bamber. Bamber up the inside in for Bishop, and Bamber already from 20th to 14th, as quick as that. And well, it may have been with a slight bit of a joke in mind that we did have at the last to first change, but to be fair, give Simon Bamber a target to chase. He will chase it, there's no doubt about it. We do see the 912 now, home to target Fabrizio Penzo. Meanwhile, we come back to the front of the field, and what we can see is that Oscar Berntsson right now comfortably ahead of Strand, and Strand has the discomfort of Commander Bjørklund looking up the inside. Bjørklund's going to go for it here, coming through Sunset, and on the inside there he will have a bit more compromise line, hits a big bump in the road there, does Bjørklund, and it upsets the balance of the car. You can see, oh my good lord, that's Josh Boot into the barrier, and Boot going sideways into the tyres. That's going to be a total pits there. That car is not going anywhere fast, so Josh Boot's race has gone to a stop, and after the contact at the start there, well, things are completely gone around for him right at the end of the open lap. Indeed, it's been a dramatic open lap for so many. Josh Boot really at the core of it. But meanwhile, as we do see Andy Jones there with Glenn Gondoliers, these two drives right now push it onwards, and Grundle is your leader in the silver class, where Emma Ryu a bit further behind by a second, but Ryu's had a good start to this race and is staying with Grundle at the time. Two of the big names in the championship fighting, and Adam Klanvik right now, if he is watching this, is probably thinking to himself, right, that's not good news, with these two being first and second, and they are the drivers he's fighting with for that crown. But meanwhile, coming down towards the hairpin, will we see any moves further back? Simon Bamber all over the back of Penzo this time. Does he go for a look up the inside? No, he waits his turn, and well, he hasn't got too many laps to go, to be fair, given the fact it is a 2-minute lap. Doing some quick mathematics, we will be seeing a grand total of what will be 7 laps around here, unless I'm mistaken. All those 7 laps being put together. In fact, it may be 6 laps, given the fact that the first lap will always be a bit longer, and they've got more fuel in the car. So, I think it's going to be 6 more than 7, but either way, well, right now, the point being that Bamber has not got time to waste. The one side, and then the other of Fabrizio Penzo, and now he's going to go for the switchback there. It's not going to work out. Penzo just has the pace to hold him at bay. As they come through Tower Bend, well, Alexander Longju, meanwhile, he's going backwards towards Penzo at the moment, so he seems to be struggling a little bit, and he's got some damage to the front of the car by looks of things. So I'm not quite sure where the BB1 sim racing driver has picked that up. That will not be helping him on his journey whatsoever. But back to Strand versus Bjørklund. They come out of Le Mans corner, and well, look at the confidence that Bjørklund has here, as he does then get so close, pulls out the toe now. They drag race their way down the Ulman Straight once again. This is a repeat of lap 1, but the point being this time, Bjørklund's already alongside before the braking zone, so this is going to give him even more confidence. He can take a much wider line now. Oh, there's contact between the two of them, and Bjørklund goes round. He goes spinning sideways, and then he rolls backwards a little bit of the race, and he'll now reverse out the way in case any drive goes deep, but there's plenty of fighting going on behind. It's 3 wide as they all come through, and in the end, Bjørklund makes it 4 wide on exit. He's able to restore. They all part the seams around him. My good lord, how on earth they all did that. Testament to all of our drivers, and also to Kim Andre Bjørklund for getting the car rolling again. What it means now is that Simon Bamber's up into 9th place as he goes on the inside of Chris Cole, and Alexander Longju is battling with him. Longju on the inside here versus Cole, fighting over 5th, but it's gone real behind. They've all gone sideways. They're all into the grass, so the barriers there. Fabrizio Penzo and also Mark Collicott coming together, and Collicott's bad luck continues, and that car looks like it's got suspension damage. He comes back on. We'll see Richard Simnor trying to get it back together again. Simnor's been involved in instant. He's opening corners twice now. It's not quite worked out as Collicott parks up there off the grass. He's going to be turned to the pit shortly, and well, Simnor's all the way backwards. But meanwhile, Alan McCain looking up the inside of Ollie Pimley here, and we're not even halfway through this race right now, but this race is definitely delivering, and as Alan McCain looks to go on the attack here, well, right now Ollie Pimley, I think he's just trying to break away a little bit more. We will get a replay of those big moments shortly, ladies and gentlemen, because there have been several of them. As we do stay on board here with McCain in the 212. I'll tell you one thing, at Daytona he found so much pace, the ROC Sports driver, and since Daytona seems to be moving forward rather than backwards. Where was this earlier in the season, I hear you ask? Well, if you do know, well, I'll be keen to know, because ladies and gentlemen, we've been wondering all the way through. Not to be rude to Alan, we know he's a quick driver, but he's just not really had a season that's been one to shout home about until Daytona, and now Sonny's finding himself right up in the thick of the top 5 battles in the silver class. We're going all the way through turn 14 in towards 15 right now. Well, we can see he's close, but not close enough there to be able to make some magic happen. And Pimley, of course, no pushover when it comes to defensive driving. He knows exactly where he needs to put the car. And what McCain, I think, will be his equal here on exit. Now in the draft, 2 tenths of the gap, heading halfway down the Allman Straight. And it's going to be a question of when, not if he's going to go for the move. And, well, you can see Pimley goes defensive there. So he says to McCain, if you want it that badly, you're going around me to get it. And, well, this will not be easy for McCain because he goes out wide. He'll naturally pick up some of the marbles out there. Also, there's a bit less grip by comparison. You can see the dark shades on the concrete where the rubber's been laid down over successive years. But McCain does get a better exit, and he builds up the speed now. But, again, looking around the outside of Genderby and Bend here for what will be third place in the silver class. None other than 7th overall. He's going to go for it. Pimley defends the inside. They'll give him the inside of turn number 3. McCain, meanwhile, runs a little bit deep there by design. Now, can he switch back? Pimley covers him off. Pimley decides, no, I'm in the middle of the road now, Alan. You're going to have to try and go around the outside again. And, well, in the end, McCain goes to the switch back here, but taps the rear of Pimley's car, and he will wait there. But brilliant battling between these two, and I suspect we've got even more to come from them as they now make the way through Big Bend, because they come underneath the gantry, and we ride on board, looking back from the rear of your number 29 machine. Well, Pimley right now has been firm. McCain's been just as firm back, and, well, looks the inside there. That's more about posture and trying to psych out a move rather than going for anything concrete, and in the end he can't quite make it happen. But from them, looking a bit further back, Rob Van Hoot battling side by side with Commander Bjørklund. It's more Bjørklund going up the insider in there, and Van Hoot in the end letting it go in the number 19. No, there's no value in battling for that position given they're 2 different classes, and they've both had races where they need to recover some valuable points. But speaking of recovering things, we're going to recover your footage from the start of the race, ladies and gentlemen, and let's take a look back. So this was right back to the start of the race. We're going to take a look back in particular at what happened into the opening corners, and Richard Simnor really at the core of it all going wrong. So we saw our pole sitter and the front row start well, Strand tucking in immediately. Meanwhile, Simnor versus Bjørklund. Well, Bjørklund getting the upper hand there in the run off the line. Now, look behind Simnor. You will see on his inside, that's Josh Boot who goes to the move immediately. So they were too wide through Genderby and Bend, and then what happened afterwards? Well, here they came into the braking zone for turn number 3, and as they did, Boot looked on the inside, tapped to the rear there by the looks of things of Simnor's car, and in the end Squirrel tried to go around the outside there to take evasive action, but unfortunately Simnor was rolling backwards and Squirrel getting caught up in it. Now let's take a look on board from Squirrel's car, and there's Boot in front of him, then there's Simnor, they're battling. Squirrel tries to squeeze his way around the outside there, it doesn't work. It is a tiny touch by this camera angle, and that's what sends Simnor on his way. I don't think any malice was meant by Boot, to be fair. I think it will be an innocent mistake, and, well, if it is a mistake, of course, and as we do see Squirrel make his way back on, well, the HRT and Nexus racing driver there, 9, it all went wrong just by being in the wrong place at the right time. But we also had this for Ben Siever towards the end of the lap as he made his way through turns 15 to 16. Coming down in towards Le Mans Bend, took plenty of apex curve, then ran a little bit wide, and in the end rally crossed his way back onto the road. But the big drama, what happened to Josh Boot at the end of the open lap? There was Bjørklund battling with Strand in the foreground of the camera shot, and then he made his way out the final quarter. Oh, the car snapped on him there, and as it did, well, just straight to the barrier. I've never seen that, and we get the on-board here, Boot. Let's just listen in and watch the steering wheel. And there was, well, the rear just came loose and he had to try and counter steer it, and in the end overcorrected for it and it got sent to the barrier. And that explains what happened to Josh Boot. We then had this big incident on lap number 2 for several drivers. This was Chris Cole battling with none other than a couple of others. Behind him, I do believe, was none other than Alexandre Longieu. As they all made the way through that left-hander. Well, Cole went wide and, well, he got away with this. What else happened behind him? I think it might have just been a run wide there for him. But then we did have a big moment there later, and it was Mark Collicutt and Fabrizio Penzo being caught up. And, well, this was the instant. This was on lap number 3, so we were a lap later than this. And, well, Penzo in the end being caught up. Can we get the start of the instant, potentially? I think we might be able to. We take a look back further. So here we go. 3 wide into the corner. And then, in the end, it was Commander Bjørklund a bit further back. But as they made the way through, well, it was Penzo who lost out. And then around the outside, we did see Mark Collicutt go spinning. That also collected their Commander Bjørklund. And that explains it all. So, that's the story. It was Penzo just losing it in the 3 wide. And then, subsequently, he triggered off a set of dominoes, if you will. But back to your live racing we come, and whilst we have been away for a bit of time, what else exactly happened is the big question. Well, right now Oscar Berntsson is still leading this race. That's the fastest lap, a 2 minute 0.197. He is 3 tenths faster than that lap compared to Matt Strand, with Andy Jones currently running in 3rd. Then you have Glenn Gondolier still keeping Emma Ryu at bay in the battle for the win in the silver class. These two right now 4th and 5th quite comfortably ahead of Jack Atkinson. who meanwhile is on the tail of Ryu. And then we do have a further 6 seconds back to Simon Bamber, who having started in 20th place has made his way all the way to 7th. So 13 places gained. He's guaranteed himself a spot in that top 10 inverted grid. Ollie Pimley is your 3rd place silver driver at the moment, still ahead of Alexander Longju and Matt Sprell. But where is Alan McCain in all this? McCain has disappeared. Sprell, meanwhile, still trying to recover here. He's got to look for a move on the Frenchman in front of him. And, well, I think coming for a big bend here, Sprell's going to be on the inside. I don't think Longju has got an answer to this other than to let it go. And getting ready to go onto the brakes, as Sprell saying to him, I'm taking this place, I'm not asking for it. And I think Longju pretty much at this point putting up his hands and saying to himself, you know what, it's better to take 5th and guarantee yourself a top 5 finish, because Chris Cole is not too far behind and is eager to try and take it off of him. But we do get a quick replay, ladies and gentlemen, to explain what's happened to Alan McCain. So this was McCain battling on the previous lap with Ollie Pimley coming down in towards Cunningham Bend. Pimley on the inside, McCain on the outside, but McCain outbroke himself in the end and went to the grass. So Pimley just being a threat on the inside, it was enough to get McCain to get it wrong. And I do believe McCain subsequently has been involved in an incident of some description, but we won't be able to get a replay of that because we are on the final lap with 19 seconds left on the clock. And well, we don't want to miss the finish of this race, as right now Oscar Berntsson charges his way down the Allman Straight, and Strand there. It's going to be a 1-2 for the team at this rate, minus a quarter, and we'll understandably here Berntsson will be happy with this. Strand would like to have taken the win, but still he'll know he's gaining ground there, and well, he's going to take the championship lead away from Kim-Andre Bjørklund after this race. There's still enough one to go. Jack Atkinson takes the place there, 5th over from Emma Ryu, and well, I don't think she's going to mind that. But meanwhile, as we do see him make his way down the start finish straight, it's a return to the grid, and it's an immediate return to winning ways for Oscar Berntsson, and it's a 1-2 for him and teammate Matt Strand for Ice Cold Racing, powered by Maxim Racing. Andy Jones completes the golden overall podium ahead of Glenn Gondoliers, who takes the win in silver class, 4th overall. Jack Atkinson takes 5th, and Emma Ryu is your runner-up in silver, ahead of Simon Bamber, with Ollie Pimley there 3rd in the silver class, just ahead of Matt Sprell at the finish. And then it was Chris Cole who rounded off the top 5 of the silvers and will be your pole sitter for race number 2 with that 10th place finish overall. Kim-Andre Bjørklund, he tried to recover as quickly as he could, but a length was the best he could do in the end, so that's where he starts the next one. And the same applies to everyone who finishes after him, with a 6th place there for Alexander Longju, losing out to Chris Cole on the final lap. And then Richard Simnor in 13th place, ahead of Dave Bigdike and Rob Van Hoot. And then we do have Ben Sieber making his way on around through the final corner, and he will be one of your last finishers of this race on the lead lap. And we've got a bit of time before we do get to Josh Boot, who is still on a lap. And well, as Steve across the line there, he finished in 16th or 9th in the silver class. We look to Josh Boot, and whilst he is making his way on around, well, the good news it gives us, albeit it's unfortunate for Josh, no doubt about it, but the upshot is we do get a bit of time to understand what happened to Alan McCain at the end of the race, and here's a replay to explain. So this was McCain making his way through Sunset Bend, and as he did so, I think he's going to experience something similar to Boot. He did, yes, he lost the rear, but he couldn't correct it, and the car went spinning, oh no, into the side of the pit wall there, and well for McCain, and that point collapsed front left side of the car, the suspension was broken, and that was it for him. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we come back to your live circuit side pictures, and here is Josh Boot right now, still yet to finish his race, albeit he is only the Allman Straight and Sunset away from seeing that finish line. And understandably, unfortunate what happened between himself and Richard Simnor into turn number 3 on the open lap, and definitely I think there no malice meant whatsoever, purely a racing accident. But of course the stewards will take a look at that one. I suspect they will have their own view of it, and they have plenty more camera angles than we do, and in the end a later incident costing Josh Boot so much coming out of the final corner on the open lap, and well, in the end 17th was what he could do. But still, there's another race to come, ladies and gentlemen, and plenty more fun to be had here at Sebring. But as I try and get a 2-minute cooldown period, let's take a look at those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries, and here they are. So on a sprint race, 12 minutes of fast, frantic, and absolutely brilliant race in action, and what we got to see was Oscar Berntsson bring on home victory and lead home a 1-2 for Ice Cold Racing by Maxim Racing, head of teammate Matt Strand there, who was 7 tenths behind. Andy Jones took 3rd place there for DCW Racing Blue, the Welshman just behind the 2 Nordic drivers, and then we did see from the golden overall podium, the silver win in 4th place for Glenn Gondoliers, a win that's very valuable to him because it does help him just shore up his championship lead. The Pegasus Sim Racing driver from Belgium was ahead of the Briton of Jack Atkinson for race by wire, and outside the top 5, Emma Ryu, the 2nd place finisher in the silver class. She will not be too upset about that, and no, she kept with Gondoliers all the way through the race for ERI by the organisation. Simon Bamber took 7th for Effect Simulations, coming from 20th through to 7th, ahead of Ollie Pimley, who rounded off the silver podium there for Ghost Squadron Esports. He had to work hard to hold on to that position, albeit Alan McCain was the guy who was defending from, not Matt Sprell, but Sprell was half half a second behind him at the finish, with the HRT Nexus Racing driver doing very well to recover to that 9th and 4th place in the silver class after the altercation between himself, Simnor and Boot on the open lap. Chris Cole took 10th there and will be your pole sitter for race number 2, so it's going to be an all-silver front row and headed by the number 11 driver. And then we will have Kim-Andre Bjørklund starting 11th there, best of the rest of Sim Racing Norway, ahead of Alexandra Longju, who taking that 12th place for BB1 Sim Racing brings home some valuable silver class points. He was 6th in class ahead of Richard Simnor, who in his own class there, definitely not finishing on the podium, which was his target, but the DCW Racing Blue driver ahead of his sister team driver Dave Biggerdijk, with Rob Van Hoek completing that top 15. Outside the top 15, let's not forget about them. We have Ben Sieber, Josh Boot with that huge instance to war on the opening lap for Atomic Esports, and it was a lap down for Alan McCain after his unfortunate moment with the pit barrier on the exit of the final corner late on in the race, and we also did see retirements for Fabrizio Penzo and also Mark Collicott. But ladies and gentlemen, those are results from race number 1, and in perfect time we've done them as well, because it's time to head to the grid for race number 2. And as our drivers make the way to the grid, this is how they'll line up for our second and final race of the day here at Sebring. It is Chris Cole who takes the top 10 inverted pole position, silver and overall. The privateer will be joined on the front row of the grid by Matt Sprell for HRT Nexus Racing. Behind them on row number 2, it's going to be Ollie Pinney for Ghost Quadra Esports and Effect Simulation's Simon Bamber, who will be a gold pole sitter. There'll be Emma Ryu and Jack Atkinson on row number 3. Row 4, Glenn Gronaliers and Andy Jones ahead of Matt Strand and Oscar Berntsson. And outside the inverted top 10 from the sprint. Then we come to where they finished in race number 1 because of Kim-Andre Bjørklund to 11th, ahead of Alexandra Longju in 12th. Then we have Richard Simnor starting 13th ahead of David Biggerdijk with Rob Van Hoek and Ben Sieber together on row 8. Josh Boot and Anna McCain on row number 9 ahead of Fabrizio Penzo and Mark Collicott. But ladies and gentlemen, that's the order. Here come the lights for the second time today. And after 5 red lights, it's lights out and away we go for our second and final race of the day here in round number 8 of the championship, and Chris Cole gets a good start, but watch out for Sprell. He's lightning off the line as well, and also Ollie Pimley there close in as they all tuck to the middle of the road. Sprell's going to go up the inside here. He wants that lead early. He's going to take it as Cole there has no response, but as they all roll through Gender B in, we're coming up towards now the left-hander turn number 3. We'll see 2 by 2, plenty. Will we see even some free wides here? We see a bit of a move being made there by Oscar Berntsson, but I don't think he's going to be able to squeeze on through. They're all safely through the opening 3 quarters this time, but we do have a black flag for a jump start for Fabrizio Penzo. So that will be a drive-through penalty that must be served within 3 laps of being awarded. But all of our drivers making their way out of the opening few quarters then. Lovely to see. And as they head through Big Bend right now, well, Ollie Pimley and Andy Jones close together here as they get ready to go down to the brakes for the hairpin. We can see our top 3 now starting to abscond a little bit as Jones and Atkinson side by side. Oh, that's a bit of a braking zone there. That's going to be Alexander Longju coming on in. And in the end, he can't get it stopped. He does collect several cars. And, well, the biggest cars to be caught out there was none other than was Alan McCain and also Mark Collicott. Kim-Andre Bjørklund decided to take a rally cross approach. They're using the escape roads to his available advantage, and well, he will of course have to give some time back, but he's already done that, but he avoided being fully collected in that one. So that was a big mistake there from Longju. Unfortunately, everybody was for the most part able to avoid being fully collected by it, but Oscar Berntsson right now still battling here with Josh Boot and find himself side by side with Boot coming down into the corners. Boot dives up the inside there of Richard Simnor, well, doing what he tried to do in the opening stage of the race. That one, it didn't quite work out, and this time he's tried to make it work again. It hasn't worked out, albeit they've survived it as they make their way in towards Bishop Bend. It is getting very furious between these gold class drivers here for it all together, and Berntsson right now side by side with Simnor as we see Boot and Strand together here come through turn 15 to 16, and right now Berntsson trying to keep them all at bay. Boot and Simnor meanwhile side by side all the way through the quarter sequence here, and well, Boot runs out to the grass there. It feels like he's been elbowed out a little bit. He rejoins, but right now he is in absolutely a hurry, and there's 30 minutes in this race. This is not a sprint by comparison with the first race of the day, and meanwhile Matt Strand here now on the inside of Simnor. Well, this is surely going to be said and done as they make their way through. Sunset Boot's back up the inside again there as he goes all in for it. Josh Boot right now, I can tell you one thing, he's just throwing everything at this one, the kitchen sink and all. Oh, and he's gone round. Boot's gone round and gets collected there by Kim-Andre. Well, that's not Kim-Andre Bjørklund's car, that's Rob Van Hoek there making contact. Oh my good lord, Van Hoek into the barrier there, and with it making contact to the car, Mark Collicott. You couldn't make up the bad luck for Collicott. He seems to have a magnet in that car for wayward machines, and unfortunately there, both what is Boot and Van Hoek out of this race, just like that, and Mark Collicott undercut as well will be towed to the pits. The damage of the car is too much. You can see how it's collapsed on the front right, and we're going to need to get a replay to understand what on earth happened there. But it all seemed to happen so quickly, and unfortunately for those drivers, they're all out of this race unless they can get the car repaired. But a tow to the pits in itself, even with fast repair available, is going to cost a considerable amount of time. But meanwhile, whilst it's all gone wrong between them, we do come to Jack Atkinson up the inside of Ollie Pimley. So that's a change overall position for 6th place, albeit Pimley right now the silver driver. We're just hoping that Atkinson can get going, essentially go hunting after Jones and then bringing towards what will be Cole and Ryu. As your silver leader right now is Matt Sproul, and the number 5 driver doing a very good job here to make sure he's really trying to control the narrative of this race. But remember, we have got a long way to go. 30 minutes is much longer compared to our opening race, but the point being, tyre management is very key in any of these longer 30-minute races. The tyres on these cars normally last at full pelt around 15 to 20 minutes, depending on track conditions. And when we do have rather pleasant conditions here today, we have got a track temperature of 34 degrees centigrade and an ambient of 24 degrees centigrade, and a limited amount of cloud, mostly sun here. Understandably, the tarmac is going to be nice and warm. Those tyres will be hot, and therefore any management that drivers can put in early on in this race, they will be rewarded with much better tyre life towards the end of it, while they'll be able to continue to max out their times as the fuel in the car gets lighter and lighter. A reminder, there are no pit stops in these races. We are expecting all the racing to be purely on the road, and there's no strategy other than to get ahead of your rivals and win. But in that way, there are some tactics that you have to deploy in order to be able to get past your rivals, and being smart with the draft is one of them. Also, managing your tyres can be invaluable as well. As we do see Simnor and Strand back together here, we ride aboard with Richard Simnor as we go on to lap number 3. And right now, the DCW Racing Blue driver, what a race it has been so far. Indeed, it's been up, down and around, and a much happier race compared to his sprint. However, understandably, the 42 driver here probably thinking to himself that right now things definitely need to settle down. He'd be grateful for some solid running here, as we do see Strand go a bit deep there at Gender B, and that's going to open up the door to Simnor. He looks up the inside, and there's going to be a very straightforward look there for the move, and Richard Simnor takes it now up into 9th or 5th in gold. Strand will tuck in behind him, and I hope there's going to be an opportunity to come back a bit later on, as Emma Ryu, meanwhile, still bringing Chris Cole along for the ride behind her. And there's a DC Andy Jones there, 2 DCW Racing livery machines, both looking for an opportunity, albeit Cole takes a sneak peek, but it's not too far front in terms of being able to make the move, and therefore relegates himself back behind. And Andy Jones, meanwhile, I suspect they'll both be on the radio to each other right now, trying to understand what's the best approach here. And, I think Cole might decide at some point to let Jones go. The idea being, if he can't find a way past Ryu himself, he might need to use Jones to help him bring the ERR by the organisation car a bit closer by essentially making a move of his own on Ryu, and that will naturally cost Ryu some time and bring her back to Cole's car. But then again, right now, I think Chris Cole will also be very keen to see if he can do this of his own volition as they make their way down in towards Bishop Bend. Now, we do say hello there to none other than Adam Rush, who's cheering on Roy Cropper, as always, and good evening to you, good sir. I hope you're doing well. And right now, Ollie Pimley, a little bit further back in contention with Oscar Berntsson for the 7th place overall. And Berntsson close behind him, but not able to find a doorway in at this time. So I think these drivers, they're just settling into the room. We're starting to see these pockets of battling, as meanwhile, the leader, Matt Sproul, trying to bolt away, but he is being matched by Simon Bamber, who is keeping him honest. But back to Jones and Cole, and I think it's going to be Jones on the inside here, so they do go for the swap down the Auburn Straight, and coming into Sunset Bend, you see Cole there intentionally going as deep as he possibly dares to dream to do so, and in doing that, what he essentially does is he will now give himself a much better run out the corner. It will keep it safe for Jack Atkinson, who's not too far behind. Berntsson here all over the toe of what would be Pimley, and coming down towards Gender B and Ben, he looks up the inside, hopes that Pimley has seen him, he's going to go for it, and Ollie Pimley in the end decides not to do anything other than honour the outside line and just let Berntsson do all the hard work. Atkinson versus Cole, Jack Atkinson up the inside, that's going to be now for 5th place. Chris Cole falls back, and Berntsson confirms the move at turn number 3 on Pimley, and that's the chop and change. Gold drives moving forward, Silver's falling back just a little bit, but Silver drives 9, they need to use the gold drivers to get them closer to the Silver class leaders. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we take a brief look back at some of the big moments of the race, including the race start. So this is how we all got underway, and Matt Sproul, of course, starting in 2nd, but what a launch it was from him in the battle with Chris Cole off the line. And when they did go green flag racing, Cole there initially getting a good start, but Sproul in the second phase of it You can see how close he got there by the time he got to third gear, and this was going only one way. It was either Cole putting himself to the inside wall or Sproul would do it, and Sproul absolutely nailing that run in towards turn number 1 as they all made the way through. Everyone's safely through the opening quarters, and it all started off well there. But when we made the way to turn number 7, it all went a bit wrong, and this is exactly what happened from the onboard of the man himself. Alexandre Longjou made his way down through Big Bend as he went onto the brakes here, went late, missed his braking zone, and then overcorrected it to the grass. And you could see what he was trying to do. He knew he got it wrong, and he tried to pull it to the inside. He pulled the car hard, but unfortunately pulled it too hard, put 2 wheels on the grass on the right-hand side, and that's what caused it to go longer. I think if he hadn't touched the grass, it would have been very close, but I think he might have just been able to get it stopped on the apex. Not saying it would have been clean how he got it stopped, but you can see what he was trying for, and in the end, he almost managed to achieve it. But what did that look like from the outside? Well, this is what it looked like from the blimp cameras. They all made the way into the braking zone. Plenty of side-by-side fighting between all these drivers, and there's Longjou coming on in, and unfortunately collecting there the side door of Oscar Berntsson. Also, Glenn Gondolier has been sent out. Kim-Andre Bjørklund taking the escape road, and then Alan McCain spinning around of his own volition there by looks of things. Or was he tapped on the rear of the car? Not 100% certain. McCain went around as well. Can we get a further replay of that? So this was McCain further back, so whilst it all went a bit wrong in front, McCain came down, looked up the inside there of Rob Van Hoot, and as he made his way off the apex curb, contact to the side there of the number, I think that was the 13 of Dave Biggerdike, and McCain unfortunately ricocheted off the side of the DCW Racing car, and that's what sent him on around. But then we did have what was a big moment a bit later. This was for Josh Boot, and this was towards the end of the open lap. So Boot chasing after the combination pair there of Simnor and Berntsson, and in him fighting harder and harder with Simnor. Indeed, this was an incredible fight. Went wide out the corner, and then heading up the Allman Straight. Well, there's still more fighting to come, as now this was Matt Strand trying to pressure Simnor. And we're getting ready for the braking zone. Boot was a bit further back, but what went wrong for Josh Boot? That's the big question mark we have, because he suddenly went very sideways at the corner. Can we get a look to Josh Boot's car? Yes, we can. And on the apex there, bounced around. We briefly lost him for a moment, and when he did rematerialise, he'd been in contact with another car, albeit hadn't registered until he rematerialised. And unfortunately, Rob Van Hoot, well, he's on board. You're going to see something very dramatic very shortly for Rob Van Hoot. We're going to get the on-board. Viewer discretion advised, ladies and gentlemen. Well, you saw him come straight to the side there of Boot's stricken car, and Van Hoot being collected there by none other than Mark Collicott, and, well, the Belgian driver being sent all the way around. Well, with that, we're going to head back to your live racing, because there's still plenty more action to go, and we don't want to dwell too long in the past when we can definitely enjoy the present. And as we come back to your present, what's changed since we've left it? Well, the big changes. We have seen Emery relegated back to 5th place, albeit still second in the silver class, with Oscar Berntsson up the inside now, and the ERW organisation driver will surely let this go and let the gold drivers go and annoy Matt Sproul if they can catch up to him. Sproul is being reeled on in, we should point out, little by little every so often, although he is exchanging lap times with Simon Bamber. The two of them are trading laps if it's going out of style on the stock market floor. But as Ryu comes out of sunset, she's got to worry about the fact that Chris Conn, Ollie Pimley, they are still in that distant contention. You can see them there a bit further back. They have got Richard Simnor, Matt Strand in front of the first, but there's no way that she's going to feel safe at the moment, and we've still got 2/3 of the race to go. In terms of how those moves were made by drivers, we'll get some replays of those shortly as Bamber tries to bring Jones away with him, and also Atkinson and Berntsson coming along for the ride, but the gap to Sproul is now 3 seconds. Matt Sproul, in fact, is opening up that gap quite quickly. That last lap, he opened it up by a further half a second. So Sproul is absolutely gunning right now. And well, I do wonder here whether Bamber's going to have a response, or whether it's going to need some reinforcements from some of the other gold drivers to do so. Meanwhile, Ryu here having that Simnor come up behind her. Looking to the inside goes Simnor in towards the hairpin. This will be a straightforward move. And well, Simnor taking the traditional overtaken line, and Ryu offering no defence there, knowing that she doesn't need to. Further back, well, the man who was caught up at this hairpin at the start of the race, he's still battling with Alan McCain. So these two, whilst they've both had dismal races, they're not going to give up. They're going to enjoy their fighting, and well, we can't be upset about that. We love to see it, in the fact that even so, when it all goes wrong, they're still here to have fun, and that's the racing spirit of Race by Wire that we definitely want to foster. As they come through Fangio Bend, well, what's it going to be this time in towards Cunningham? And the answer is it's not going to be a move, because McCain's 4 attempts ahead, and Longjou having to wait there for that move for 7th place in silver. But from there, we come back up to Commander Bjørklund, still on a recovery drive here, and well, this is going to feel very similar to the recovery drive that he made at Daytona. Many of you may remember, of course, he had that spin on the open lap that put him all the way to the back of the field, and yet he recovered to what was in the end a 4th place finish in the gold class. Well, right now, the number 88 driver definitely finding himself being tested in terms of his championship status medal, and indeed all champions will have to overcome big setbacks like this, and right now Commander Bjørklund digging deep for this one, but how much further can he go. Next gap is 1.5 seconds to Ollie Pimley. He can close that down. He's then got to pick his way through a whole scrap of silvers, including Ryu and Cole. And then we do have the whole pack of golds all the way to the gold leader, Simon Bamber. Speaking of which, he's under some pressure as they go onto a 7th lap, because we look back from the rear of your gold leader, 2nd overall, and right now the Effect Simulations driver not comfortable with Andy Jones there. And credit where it's due to Andy Jones, he's definitely found a lot of pace in this late end of the season as Bamber runs out wide, and now going down towards turn number 3. Well, it's going to be Jones looking up the inside here. He does go for it, and well, that's going to be a straightforward pass to the end because Simnor haven't gone to the grass. He hasn't got anywhere near as much grip under braking. And out to the corner, Jones takes the gold lead, but now can he run away with it, or will Bamber stay with him? Can Atkinson get involved? Can Oscar Berntsson get involved? For Jack Atkinson, finish on the podium right now, this would be his best result of the season. If he could take the gold win, well, it would not just be a first time on the gold podium, it would be a first time on the gold podium with his first win, and that in itself would be absolutely special. And they've still got over half the race to go right now, so anything could happen until the very finish. And when we are expecting the best part of what we none other than 15 laps around here, well, they have got a lot more time to try and get this done. But of course, as Oscar Berntsson encroaches, his full process will be one thing and one thing only. I need both gold wins, and he will not hold back. He's got to go all in for this. He really has got to take an all or nothing approach here today if he wants to keep that championship charge alive, albeit Matt Strand at 2 places behind him right now is an ever-present concern, albeit you do want to beat your teammate, you want to beat them fairly, but Strand right now, he'll be hoping in some respects the way that Strand doesn't really manage to finish 2nd place again, because otherwise the championship will be leaning more towards Strand. It's a very difficult one as a teammate. You want to see your teammate do well, but also when you are in contention for the Drivers' Championship and you know you need your teammate to suffer a little bit, well, it's not an easy feeling. But you can't think about that. You have to be absolutely ice cold, like the team name would suggest, and just think to yourself, right, what can I do in this situation? And what happens to my teammate is up to them and fate in regards to them. I can only control my destiny and my luck. But here comes Oscar Berntsson looking up the inside of Atkinson, and Atkinson there runs out wide, runs a bit too wide perhaps, albeit he's going to go for the switchback here as they make their way out the corner. It's a lovely move from Berntsson, but it's a lovely switchback from Atkinson. Now, can he get the momentum towards Genderby Bend? It is 1.5 tenths as they come across the start-finish line. Well, if he was any closer at this point, I think he'd definitely be looking for it, but Atkinson right now, he's looking to the inside, but in the end, he's just too far back, and he hasn't got it on the brakes. There's Atkinson. He has all that confidence to be able to launch it, and therefore, Berntsson does take the move. So great move there from the Swedish driver, and now for Oscar Berntsson, there's even more to come because his next target is to go for 2nd in gold. That will Simon Bamber, and then Andy Jones is the final boss of this one. As all these drivers make their way along, well, meanwhile, further back, Ryu still ahead of Pimley and Cole, albeit the gap now from Ryu to Pimley has opened back up to 8.5 tenths. So a bit more security there by the looks of things. And, well, it's going to be all about now who exactly is going to go for what and when, because Cole looking for the move there on Pimley, I think trying to see whether Pimley's going to flinch, and the answer is no, he's not. As Bjørklund's closed up, and so is Glenn Gondoliers. And remember, of course, after his winning race number 1 for Gondoliers right now, he needs to get to the front of this group. If he can get ahead of Emma Ryu, he will, whilst he'll miss out on the winning race number 2. For him, it will be as close as possible to a perfect score, because he will have finished ahead of his rival today, and in the absence of Adam Klanvik, of course, it will really double up to be a huge result and extend his lead at the top of the championship. But if Ryu is able to finish ahead of him right now, then all that victory in race number 1 will be undone, because the feature race, of course, is worth more points by comparison, given it is 2.5 times the length. Looking at Cole, he's got Bjørklund now so close at this point that surely he's got to be thinking to himself, it's going to be a question of when, not if, that move is coming. And we do ride on board here with the Sim Racing Norway driver, the number 88, and we shows you there, the fact goes nice and wide early in order to open up the corner. Well, gets a really big run here, and so big a run, in fact, that in the end, where he's made the move, even before they've made it halfway down the Allman Straight. And I think Cole, at this point, respecting the fact that's happened, and now he's just going to hold that outside line and hope that Bjørklund outbreaks him in towards the corner, so that way he can tuck right in. The answer will be yes, they will do exactly that, albeit Glenn Gondoliers now, he sees the doors open there slightly, and he's thinking to himself, right, can I pick off Cole earlier than expected? Now, off camera, we have had a change for 2nd in the gold class. Oscar Berntsson has passed Simon Bamber. We are going to get a replay of that very shortly, because that's the change that's happened. But meanwhile, well, here is Richard Simnor versus Jack Atkinson. They're 2 wide, cover for 2 in towards 3. Simnor on the inside there, and Atkinson does not have a response other than to let that one go for now. But as we do see Simnor make the mother of all ham sandwiches over the apex curve of turn number 4. Well, in the end, definitely not the way you want to do it. He comes back down to terra firma and loses a bit of momentum. In fact, he loses 4 attempts to Simon Bamber with that mistake over the curve. That's how quickly you can lose the time. ready to go onto the brakes right now. Can he make up the time? Well, he'll feel as though he can, but City with Berntsson not breaking away from Bamber after passing him. But how exactly did that pass get made in the first place? Well, here's a quick replay to explain. So this was coming out of Le Mans Bend, and as they went on Stillman Straight, Bamber having a poor run out the corner, ran a little bit wide, and as a result, this opened up the door perfectly for Berntsson to go on the attack. But it wasn't quite over until they got to Sunset, and Bamber tucked in immediately there, and then decides to pull back out, really just trying to get into Berntsson's head at that point, but Oscar Berntsson having none of it, and just simply taking the number 35 through the corner and feeling safe into apex. Meanwhile, for Simnor versus Atkinson, this was only moments later. This was coming down towards turn 1. It was Simnor on the inside in towards Gender B and Bend. Atkinson went out wide, taking as much speed as he possibly could, but Simnor really confident on that inside line, and in the end, he was on the inside all the way towards turn 3, and the rest has been consigned to history. Back to your live racing pictures we come, and as we do, well, things are intensifying for third in the silver class. We have 12 minutes left on the clock. We now are into sprint race territory, albeit with much more heavily degraded tyres by comparison with our first race of the day, and now this is really going to start to come down to who saved enough tyre to get them to the finish comfortably versus who is going to struggle. Going Gondoliers, they're tapping the rear of Cole into the braking zone. And, well, right now he's got a lot more confidence compared to Cole, and that might be a sign of who's saved some tyre life here as we ride on board with the attacking driver in the number 99. And we'll now look into the inside here. Can he get it done? He's got 99% of the way there. Can he find the extra 1%? Looks like the inside of number 11. And in the end, Gondoliers goes all in at Genderbeen. Will he get it done? The answer is yes, he will initially. Now, will we see Cole come back? Yes, he tries to, but Gondoliers goes defensive there as they make the way in towards turn 3. And well, in the end, they were both going to be firm with each other, and Gondoliers really laying down the law there to the DCW racing driver and saying to him, there's no way through for you whatsoever. But Pimley will be grateful for this and the fact they continue to scrap, because it buys him an extra second of time. And now, with 1.3 second gap, can he feel safe a little bit longer? Well, we can see in front Commander Bjørklund getting closer to Emma Ryu, so Pimley now's got to be thinking to himself, right, can I get involved here and potentially steal this place away from the driver in front of me in the silver class, because the fact the gold driver is going to give him an opportunity at some point. But meanwhile, one silver driver who seems to be absolutely untouchable at the front of the field, albeit he is being caught up by Andy Jones a little bit, is Matt Sproul comfortably ahead. And meanwhile, Jones right now has a problem because Oscar Berntsson looks like the inside into 12. Can't quite find it there, and Berntsson immediately seeing what he can do. It's a big slide there from Andy Jones, some oversteer on power. That's tyre life starting to go against him coming out of Tower Bend, and now Berntsson, well, he's got to take confidence for that. As meanwhile, Bamber versus Simnor, well, these two very familiar with each other. They've raced each other for years at this point, and Simnor up the inside there from outside to inside for Bishop Bend and Le Mans. He gets that done, and right now Simnor up in the third place. He is quickly approaching all the big names who were caught up at the start of the race or at the back end of the top 10. They're all now making progress, and Jones versus Berntsson, here they come. Coming ready to the end of this lap. Lap number 10's almost done, and right now is Oscar Berntsson's run to the lead of the gold class done. Well, he's on the inside. Jones right now, I think, wait to see if he can switch it back onto the start for this straight, but Berntsson there nice and tight to the apex and looks absolutely composed. 3 attempts as they exit the corner. Now, can Jones get the better exit here, or will it be down to the draft and a bit of confidence into Genderby and Bend? It may be the latter here, because the Sproul takes us on to lap number 11. These two follow, and right now Oscar Berntsson does not look under threat. Berntsson has made his way into the lead of the gold class. Now, how much further can Matt Strand go to offset it? Strand takes the place of Jack Atkinson there in towards the opening quarter. So Strand now up into 5th place of the gold class. Atkinson right behind him, but then offering no counter-attack. They're coming in towards turn number 3 other than the risk of it. And so Strand now moves into 5th, but he needs to pick up another 3 places here, and therefore he'll be able to offset the amount of points that Oscar Berntsson gets. Right now, Oscar Berntsson will be taking the maximum 40 from this race today. It will go to his total set of scores. Meanwhile, for Matt Strand, well, he'll be scoring the best part of what will be in the region of about 30 points by comparison. It will be a 10-point swing, albeit there is still the fact that he's got a 0 as well as he scores Oscar Berntsson, and he cannot drop a 0 score, so therefore he needs those perfect points. But Strand will be keen to make sure that the pain that he has to go through to get that championship title is going to be all the more lessened by the more points he himself takes, as right now the ice cold racing driver has to make sure that Atkinson can't come back at him. So with all the golds now together at the front, what about your silvers behind? Because Emma Ryu had been passed by Kim-Andre Bjørklund on the previous lap. Well, now she's got a direct line to Pimley, Grondeliers and Cole, all 4 of them together, and it's 11-second gap back to David Biggerdike. So they're looking close, and also right towards the back of the silver class. Let's not forget about these two. They're having a good old scrap. Ben Sieber and Fabrizio Penzo fighting over 9th place here, and well, it may not be over huge points, but to these two, they're big points for them in their respective Drivers' Championship campaigns. And Penzo getting a bit close here, coming through Fangio. He's going to look one way, then the other, and then he's going to look around the outside. Sieber covers him off, and well, Sieber doing a good bit of defensive driving there, and Penzo keeping under pressure. There's a bit of a slide there from Sieber coming in towards Collier, and now up towards Tower, and Penzo looking to the inside there, but he's a bit too far back. The camera makes him look close, but he's nowhere near close enough, and therefore just had to tuck in for now. But as they make their way past the location where David Biggerdike's car has disappeared into the ether, well, meanwhile, that's Grondeliers up the inside of Ollie Pimley. So Pimley there losing out through sunset. We'll get a replay of how that started shortly. There has been a bit of change, but Grondeliers now up in a third of the silver class as Pimley loses out and Chris Cole still behind. But right now for Grondeliers, well, one more drive for him to pick off here, and that way he will make sure that he's gaining ground on everybody in the silver championship minus Grell. And well, out agenda being bent, here comes Pimley back at him. So Pimley's not done with this yet as we ride aboard. Looking down over the front of the number 29. 7 minutes left on the clock. They've got this lap plus another 3 most likely to go. But Pimley looking left, looking right. It's a really good run through turn number 5. But as they power the one out now, can he convert it into a move up the inside at 7? Through Big Bend in the draft. The gap only what is a 1/10 and a half here. Looking to the outside initially. Grondeliers does not signal anything other than he's going to go defensive. So Pimlian does not get the chance to go for the switchback. He doesn't throw a dummy here. I think he might do so later on, given Grondeliers is so keen to defend initially before returning to the racing line. At the moment, at least, they stay as they are. We'll leave them be for a brief moment as meanwhile, Sieber versus Penzo. They come through turn number 3. Ben Sieber still holding on here for that 8th place spot with David Biggerdike's car being retired from this race under what is a technical issue as we understand it. And the exit of what was Tower Bend, he had to park the car up. Well, Sieber right now holding on to 8th place. They've both been promoted, but who's going to get the biggest set of points now? With Penzo coming back here down towards the hairpin. He's going to look to the middle of the road. Sieber does not offer a defense here, other than that he can just beat the man under the braking zone, and he'll be able to do that. Lovely bit of work from him. But heading onwards, well, meanwhile, we take a look back in time to exactly see how Glenn Grondeliers made that move on Ollie Pimley. So this was coming down the Allman Straight. It was the better run all the way in towards the corner. And well, in the end, Pimley was ahead, but Grondeliers managed to get to the inside there, and Pimley had to switch very quickly from defend on the outside to the switchback, and therefore get the better run up towards what Vigenda being Bend. And we saw the rest of it, of course, but that's how it all started, and a lovely move at that. But now, back to live race to become once again, and in time, because Emma Ryu is under pressure for second in silver. Grondeliers is trying to go round the outside. That's brave, but if he can get it done here, it would be an incredible move, but Ryu is still there, but on a tyre exit line, she'll now have less momentum going down towards Gendabin. Will she go defensive to the wall? The answer is no, at least not initially. Here comes Grondeliers, but Ryu now goes defensive at the last possible moment. In towards that opening corner, onto lap 13. 3 more laps to go, and Ryu right now having to hold on for dear life as Grondeliers' car has been beaten, it's been battered, it's been bruised, but it's not been broken, nor is the Belgian driver's spirit. Under braking, Ryu goes a little bit deep. That sends what is Grondeliers deep as well, and only Pimley then almost able to make the move on the inside, but I don't think he was ready for it. I think he expects them all to clear the corner A-OK, and in the end he almost went deep with them, and Chris Cole's all over his 6 right now. So these 4 all together as we do have a black flag. It's a drive-through penalty for track limits for Alexandre Longju. He will pick up the instant points there, so he will most likely give up places, potentially depends on Sieber. So their battle now becomes the battle for 7th place of Canberra. But we do see our 4 silver drivers here literally nose to tail. They are separated by 3/10 from car to car to car, and we're so tight right now, and you are seeing some of the big names of the silver class here fighting for the most important points, and this could be championship defining come the end of the season, what they are able to achieve here today. As Grondeliers looking at the inside again in towards what will be Cunningham, but there's just no way in at the end right now. Ryu just doing enough to hold on. In the gold class, we are keeping an eye on the Berntsson-Jones-Simnor battle, because that is building up to a degree, albeit it has gone quiet, but they are keeping the gaps at 6/10 between each car, so you never know what could happen there. But if there's even the smallest mistake from Berntsson or Jones, it could suddenly bring an overtake in. But right now, Emma Rio really under pressure here, and we're going to stay transfixed this battle all the way to the end if we can help it. As meanwhile, we have got confirmation Longju that's now serving what is that penalty in the pit lane, and we're very unfortunate for him in a race that's definitely gone backwards and gone from good to bad to disaster, much like it has for David Biggerdike, Rob Van Hoot, Mark Colliquot and Josh Boot. But Seeing Ryu now making the way down the Allman Straight, making the way into the middle of the road, then going defensively inside the slipstream. So strong for Gondoliers here, and coming in and into the braking zone, contacts the rear of Ryu's car twice. Ryu on the brakes a bit early there, and I think trying to hold that inside line, but in the end Gondoliers has so much more confidence, and right now what I understand is they make the way down the start-finish straight. The Pegasus Sim Racing driver looking all in for this, and well, 2 more laps to go. Ryu going defensive. Gondoliers now looking around the outside. Can he do something special? Can he go all the way round, or can he get it switched back? He's going to try and go all the way round. It's not going to quite work, and you see Ryu immediately defending to the inside here. So that means now Gondoliers got to go round the outside in towards turn number 3. He's not going to be able to find it there either. Ollie Pimley's just waiting behind. So is Chris Cole. They're both watching this, thinking that the 2 drivers may end up tripping over each other's toes and potentially 2 place an offer instead of 1. And Gondoliers right now so quick in these corners. Ryu struggling at this point as they come through Big Bend and getting ready to go towards the hairpin. Gondoliers will have to go around the outside here. It's going to be a battle on the brakes, coming down into that zone. Behind them, it's going to be almost 2 wide there between Pimley and Cole. Gondoliers has got a nose ahead, but as they all break the one in, Pimley has to go defensive there. Meanwhile, Ryu makes the car as wide as humanly possible. They are still all as they were, and it's right now really going to be a breathtaking spectacle here as to who finishes on the second and third step of the silver podium. Ryu, we look back for the rear off now, coming into the braking zone, looking around the outside. Gondoliers goes for it here into Cunningham, but on the outside line, it's so hard to get the car to go all the way around because it is a slightly off-cambered corner, and making the way through turn 11 in towards 12. Well, right now, Ryu literally putting up the walls, and Gondoliers is trying to break them down. Pimley still ahead of Chris Cole by comparison. Cole has fallen back a little bit after getting caught up in the hairpin, but now getting ready to go on towards the concrete slabs here, back onto the runways of old. And as they power the way through, well, Gondoliers now has got to try to be unconventional. Where else can he go for the move? Well, definitely not this time around at Bishop Bend, but coming in towards Le Mans here. Can he do something different? Can he potentially send it here into turn 16? No, he's too far back. It would not be advisory, but that's what he's got to think. He's now got to be unconventional here. If Ryu's going to make the car as wide as humanly possible, he's now got to think, where will she not be expected it? She'll be expected down the Allman Straight. Immediately goes defensive, and in the end, Gondoliers is going to run onto the runoff area there. He puts 2 balls onto the white line, and as they make the way in towards Sunset Bend on the inside line, he goes deep. Ryu goes to the switch back here, and as they come through, he gets it done. Glenn Gondoliers takes second place in the silver class, and with it the lead of the championship battlers as he makes his way down towards turn number 1. The white flag waves. We've got 1 more lap to deliver today, and now Gondoliers has got to try and hold on here as Ryu looks inside. Gondoliers covers her off so tight to the wall, both of them here literally stripping time out each other hand over fist. But for Gondoliers this matters so much. Ryu, it matters just as much as well. Pimley also trying to get involved. Ryu looking around the outside now. Gondoliers going defensive, plants the car on apex and says, no, you're not coming through, I've taken it from you, it's mine. And right now Ryu's not listed, she wants it back. Pimley and Cole both waiting there as well. They're absolutely pushing each other to the limit here, these 4 drivers. It's absolutely intense. Quoting Shadow Fox there in the YouTube chat, you're all enjoying it, so we're in the content booth. Gondoliers goes defensive, Ryu looks one way, then the other goes to the switchback. Gondoliers covers it off, sees the dummy coming and doesn't fall for it. Pimley meanwhile has to cover off Cole whilst also trying to attack Ryu. Literally right now you've got to envy Ollie Pimley's position, because on the one hand he wants that 3rd place in silver, but on the other, Chris Cole right now is knocking at his door and saying, are there any more points available for me? He's not being given a chance whatsoever here. And as they come into that braking zone, well, Cole looks up the inside, too far backing in to go for it. As meanwhile, all these drivers, they fight as hard as they do. And updating the gold class, we're not going to cut to it at the moment at least. Matt Strand has got ahead of Simon Bamber for 4th place in gold. That's happened off camera. We'll get a replay of that later. But right now, staying transfixed into the fight between these drivers when it calms down for a brief moment as they head down towards Bishop Bend. And as they do, we briefly show you the leader, then we show you 2nd and 3rd overall. Oscar Berntsson, gold leader right now, still chasing down Matt Sprell, but it looks as Sprell may get the overall win here. He may finally take that overall win that eluded him at what was Daytona that week ago. But looking back to Gondoliers, he is still ahead of Ryu, but now he has the ultimate test. He was probing the back of Ryu multiple times, but now coming down the Allman Straight, he's got to try and hold on. But hold on to that, ladies and gentlemen, because Matt Sprell is going to be your silver winner here today, and overall winner as well. He pulls off the impossible. He makes it happen of HRT Nexus Racing ahead of Oscar Berntsson, your gold winner, who makes it perfection today ahead of Andy Jones and Richard Simnor, who round off the gold podium. Matt Strand takes 4th in gold and 5th overall ahead of Simon Bamber and Jack Atkinson. Where is Kimandre Bjørklund? There he is. And where's Ryu? Where's Gondoliers? They're side by side at the line. My good lord, it's a photo finish between the 2 of them. We had to come back to right at the end there, and Gondoliers, I think he's done it by 3 thousandths. I don't know, ladies and gentlemen. They were literally neck and neck, but it looks as though Gondoliers may have taken the 2nd place spot on the silver podium just ahead of Pimley and Cole. And well, we've still got a few more drivers to finish, including Alan McCain, Fabrizio Penzo, and also Ben Sieber. But we promise you, before we go to results, we are taking a look back at that one. We do not want to miss what exactly happened there before we find out who has taken that second place in silver. But Fabrizio Penzo will beat Ben Sebring in the end to 7th in the silver class, and Sebring will be your last lead lap finisher in 15th. But straight away, we need to go back to that last lap battle between what was Ryu and Gronliz. Here we go back, ladies and gentlemen. Let's find out what exactly happened as we made our way onto it. And here is the footage. So Ryu was on the attack, switched back to the outside to get to the inside of Sunset Bend, and then Gronliz left the door open as they made the way out of the corner. Well, Gronliz on that outside line, he would have had the quicker run eventually, and well, it's so close between the two of them. I wonder if we can potentially get a helicopter camera. There was a helicopter up in the sky near them at the time. Can we find out how close they were? I think we can. In fact, let's go back to that battle. And in fact, we're going to catch it from this point onwards. And in terms of how it all played out, of course, we saw this moment where they made the way out of the hairpin. It was so close between the drivers as they rolled the way onwards. And it looks like Gronliz was absolutely set for what would be success at this point. But after that, well, we wind forward a little bit as we did see Cole looking up the inside of Pimley. And what we got to see after that, of course, was the battle between Gronliz and Ryu. Now, this was they made the way in towards Le Mans corner. So this is the perfect angle that we need for this, but can we get a helicopter over them? Yes, we can. So there was a helicopter following them at the time, and this was Ryu on the chase. Now, Ryu in the black car, of course, following Gronliz on down, legally allowed to touch this runoff area, and as they made the way in towards Sunset. Well, Gronliz went defensive, but he came offline initially on the inside, and you can see Ryu use that in order to set up a run to the inside. Brilliant switch there for Ryu, and going through the corner now as they exited out. Well, we can see here how close it was. Ryu was ahead initially, and then going towards that line, it was literally neck and neck. I think Gronliz did manage to do it because our time tower may not be accurate until we look at the results. And well, at the end, both drivers there absolutely enjoyed it to the point, even having a little tussle at the end. But that's all fair in love and war, as they say, ladies and gents. But what an end to their battle. And without further ado, let's take a look at those race results and see who exactly finished where, subject, of course, to any steward's decisions. And well, ladies and gents, without further ado, after 30 minutes of intense racing, our second race of the day here in round number 8 of the Race by Wire Porsche Cup Season 1, brought to you on iRacing and sponsored by Energise Virtual Solutions. Matt Burrell took the silver and overall win, that eluded him at Daytona by 6 thousandths in the sprint race. He's finally made history and made it happen. The HRT Nexus Racing driver absolutely on point and celebrating out on circuit right now, I do believe. And I think the blimp cameras might be picking him up, having a bit of fun out there. And Oscar Berntsson, meanwhile, runner-up overall. But most importantly for him, another gold class win. And with it, the perfect score on a return to the racing with 3 rounds to go. Now 2 to go after today. That's exactly what the doctor ordered for the Ice Cold Racing by Maxim Racing driver. We then saw Andy Jones taking home what's the second place spot in the gold class for DCW Racing Blue ahead of his teammate Richard Simnor. It was a 2-3 on the podium for the team. They'll be absolutely ecstatic about that. When Matt Strand not quite able to find his way past Simnor. He was too far behind, but he did manage to overcome Simon Bamber in the late stages. And the Ice Cold Racing by Maxim Racing driver, knowing that 4th place right now in class, 5th overall, definitely means he's lost some ground and advantage to his teammate Berntsson. Then it was none other than Simon Bamber in 6th place there for Effect Simulations ahead of Race by Wire's Jack Atkinson. And then we did see Kim Andre Bjørklund recover to 8th place, 7th in the gold class, but 9th for Sim Racing Norway. This is not the way he's wanted the day to go. And right now the championship lead will be moving in the direction of Strand, and Berntsson will be closing on the Norwegian driver in return. But second in the end in the silver class, 9th overall, we have your confirmation. It was Glenn Gronliz by 3 thousandths at the finish line. That's how close it was. He was the runner-up in silver today in that drag race to finish, the Belgian driver, ahead of Emma Ryu, the organisation driver. She held on as long as she possibly could, and when she fell, she didn't give up. But unfortunately for Ryu, it was the 10th place overall and a 3rd place in class. But 9, when the fight's that close, you can't be disappointed. Ollie Penley bets the rest in a length there for Go Squadron Esports, just behind in the end and having to fend off Chris Cole as much as look forward, so he couldn't quite get onto the podium, but he was ahead of Cole in the round off the top 5 there, with the priority taking that 12th place. And then we did see Alan McCain for RS Esports further back in 13th after a frustrating middle portion of the race for him. And it was a further, 23 seconds back to Fabrizio Penzo, who did in the end get the upper hand of Ben Sieber, and the priority from Italy taking his best score of the season in a feature race today. Ben Sieber as well did very well there for DCW Racing Blue, enjoying that battle for DCW Racing Yellow, I should say. And it was 3 laps down, sadly, for a retirement for Alexandra Longju with that trip to the pits after the black flag for BB1 Sim Racing. And it was was 5 laps down for David Biggerdike with a technical issue at Tower Bend, seeing him park up on the grass and in the end retire the car. From the DCW Racing Red Tri, it was also commiserations for Rob Van Hoot, as it was for Mark Collicott and Josh Boot. Goodness me, ladies and gentlemen, what a pair of races we have had. Full of drama, no doubt about it, but Sebring always delivers, no doubt. And what an incredible round of racing. And the good news is that whilst our racing may have fallen silent in terms of the action on the circuit, we're not going to fall silent too long here with regards to this broadcast, because coming up in approximately 5 minutes' time will be our post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers. Don't go anywhere. You won't miss hearing what our drivers have got to say about the racing today at Sebring International Raceway. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for our post-round interviews. And what better way to kick them off than hearing from a man who today achieved perfection in the gold class, at least as far as points being earned is concerned. And none other than Oscar Berntsson was the man who did it, and now he joins me in the interview room. Good evening to you, Oscar, and well, what a day from yourself. You needed perfection today after missing the last 2 rounds, and you've achieved it. Back-to-back wins in the gold class. I mean, you couldn't ask for more.
No, I'm really happy with the race. I mean, it's 40 points right into the standings, so it's good. I have a lot to hunt down since, like you said, I missed 2 weekends. So that's a shame, but I mean, it's fun to have a fight, and especially now with Matt leading the championship. It's fun to have a fight in the team, even though we also have Kim, Andre. So it's a bit of a Nordic battle up there.
Or indeed a huge Nordic battle right at the front of the field. I mean, it'll be the battle of the Nordic drivers all the way to the end, I suspect. But of course, on that, when it's your teammate who is leading the championship, particularly coming out of this round, as well as a driver from another team, it must be a bit awkward in a way because you want to see the Ice Cold Racing team win the championship. At least one of the drivers do, but you want to be the driver who wins it out of yourself and Matt. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really thought about it a lot. It went surprisingly well today. I didn't expect it. I was just counting that I was way out of the championship, that I wasn't even close to even having a chance. But I think I do have a chance on the championship if things go right for me. Uh, but yeah, like you said, I of course want to see a Ice Cold Racing car in the winning driver championship, but I also want it to be myself. But I mean, if Mats wins the championship, it's all good to him. He's good. He's consistent. He's yeah, a good driver and a nice person.
Or indeed, fair play. And I think that's a brilliant way to put it, to be fair. The fact that you've got lovely teammates, that either one of you wins it. If it goes to the team, great. And if Matt gets it, he deserves it. If you get it, you deserve it. And speaking about deserving things, you started off with absolute aplomb. Pole position in qualifying. I mean, we've known you for some incredible pole laps, but that looked a really quick one in your class.
Yeah, it was a good lap. Um, like I said, I have been away from the sim for a while, so I'm like really struggling with braking. But right now I'm braking too hard, so I'm struggling with that. So I didn't expect to get pole with 310s, but I did. Uh, not to, yeah, with all good meanings, I expected Josh to be up with me in the qualifying, since he had a lot of pace during practice. So yeah, I'm pretty happy.
Oh, and with that happiness in qualifying in the sprint race, it looked as though after what happened at turn number 3 between Richard Simnor, Josh Boot, and a couple other drivers, it was really a race for you to run away with. Whereas your teammate Matt Strand was really holding on to second, and the two of you brought home a 1-2.
Yeah, Matt was a bit of a bodyguard for me, so I think he should have just as much credit for yeah holding everyone off as me winning. But yeah, he was controlling the pace, controlling the tires. I was trying to start to feel even in the first race how much the tires were degrading for the second race. So I felt that they were degrading pretty fast. So I it gave me a good strategy for race 2, and yeah, we managed to get a 1-2. So we're both happy with that, and the team is happy, I hope.
Oh, 100%. I'm sure the team will be happy. And then going into race number 2, of course, starting in 10th place. In the early stage of the race, we did see a big incident at turn number 7 where Alexander Longju got a bit wrong under braking and did tap the doors of a few drivers, I think including yourself as well, but you just about survived it. That must have been a bit of a scary start.
Yeah, I don't know how I survived that. I saw in the mirror a car coming in like yeah a really fast speed. So like the last half a second, I turned the wheel to the left to try and avoid him. He still hit me, but I think that saved me because otherwise he would have hit me right on the front wheel of me. But now he hit me in the door instead, so I somehow managed to get out of that incident without any damage, which is yeah, very lucky for me.
Well, indeed, quite a bit of luck. And then carrying on for the remainder of the race, what we saw from that point onwards was a classic from yourself, picking your way past your gold rivals one by one. I mean, we always like to think of it's not a question of if you can do it, it's when you do it. And, well, with only a few laps to go in the end, you got the job done come the end of lap 14, and that final lap was just about holding off Andy Jones.
Yeah, it was slowly picking up through the field in the race 2. And I saw that Matt Spurl had an amazing gap with 5 seconds when I got into P2 or something like that. So I was like, no, never. I'm not catching that. So like you said, it was a defense and driving in the mirror from Andy behind, who also had really good pace. Uh, we were fast in different sections of the track. I think was faster in the sections where you could overtake, so I was lucky there to be fast in those sections. But yeah, I managed to get the gold win, and congrats to Matt. Really good pace, and I talked to him a little before this interview, and apparently he was tire saving with that pace, which is just amazing. That's I don't know what that guy is doing in Silvercross.
Well, to be fair to him, the fact that he's been able to put these performances together later on in the season shows how far he's come as the season has gone on. But still, coming back to yourself, Oscar, and I appreciate the respect you do have for Matt, focusing on your championship. Perfect set of points from today. 2 rounds remain. Can you do perfection once again at the Hockenheim Ring next week?
uh, I mean, Hockenheim, I like the track, but my strength is often high-speed corners, and Hockenheim is a bit of like straight low speed, straight low speed. But I think the track is fun to drive, so I don't actually know about my pace on that track. Maybe it's good, maybe it's bad, maybe it's mid. But of course, I hope to get a perfect day and get 40 points to close in on the championship a bit more. But it's we'll see. It's not much. It's 4 races to go. I think I am 13 points behind Mats, and so that's a lot. But I I hope I can win it, and if I don't, I hope Mats win it. Nothing against Kim Andre, but of course you want your teammates to win.
Oh, 100%. But Oscar, I mean, if you can do it, we look forward to seeing you try to do it at least over the next 2 rounds. As you say, 4 races to go, and more challenge lies ahead at the Hockenheim Ring. But just before we do let you go to rest for the evening, you've definitely earned it. Is there anyone you'd like to give a mention or a shout out to?
Yeah, to the team, stuff like that. Also to the admins, the drivers in this league, and also to you, to you, Paul. Um, it was so fun to come back into the sim after a long break and having this amazing race in this amazing league with yeah, everything. It's just so fun.
Oh, fantastic. Well, Oscar, I'm so glad to hear how much fun you're having. It's definitely reflected in the way you're approaching the driving week in, week out. We're glad to have you back after that extended break, and we look forward to seeing you back on the grid again next week in Germany. But until then, congratulations on the perfect 40 points today, and we will see you in a week's time. Have a great rest of your evening.
Hope you're the same.
So there we heard from Oscar Berntsson, ladies and gentlemen, and what you can hear in his voice, it's a bit of a bittersweet. There is a relief that he's been able to take the perfect score today, and he's done it in such brilliant fashion in the sprint after taking pole position, being able to lead the way and secure that 1-2 of Matt Strand. However, in the feature race as well, having to fight his way through getting it done and realising he couldn't quite catch up to Matt Sproul. So not quite the perfection in overall finishing, but perfect for the score's concerned. But on the other hand, you can hear his voice, that slight trepidation knowing that he's still got a hill to climb if he wants to be the champion. I think as well, the thought process, of course, he's got to live in the now. I know he's got 4 races to go. He can only do what he can do in the 4 races, and what everyone else does is their business. But it always does wager on the mind. But at the same time as well, he's hopeful. If he can't win it, it'll go to his teammate Matt Strand, and therefore the Ice Cold Racing by Maxim Racing team always thinking about the team doing well as much as their individual drivers doing well. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be doing well to have another interview, because we've got another one coming up, and we'll be back very shortly to find out who exactly it's going to be with. And so, ladies and gentlemen, for our second interview of the day, we come to the silver class, and joining me now is none other than HRT Nexus Racing's Matt Sproul. Good evening to you, Matt, and well, another very solid day for yourself, particularly with a monster drive to victory in the feature.
How you doing, mate? Yeah, really, really good. Bit unexpected, a bit like last week, but yeah, mega.
Oh, indeed. And started off, of course, with qualifying. Pole position, 6th overall. Not quite perhaps at the very forefront of the field, which we've come to know and love from yourself, like at Daytona, but still pole position.
Yeah, qualifying for me was a bit weak. Again, that's like my sort of Achilles heel. I just never really got on a good rhythm and was quite far down. But I was pleased with 6th, I think 5th or 6th, wherever I was on the grid. But yeah, there's definitely more time in there, a lot more time. But that's pretty much always the case, honestly. It's the same for everyone. It's just about getting the best lap you can. But yeah, not the best lap for me. I sort of underfueled myself a bit. So the tyre warm-up and stuff was a little bit different, but I don't think that made too much of a difference. But yeah, still on silver pole, I think, which was good. But yeah, still need to work on quali.
Well, some work to be still done in qualifying, but in the sprint race, things went a little bit backwards, unfortunately, because, of course, a great launch from yourself. Turn 1, you're all safe. Turn number 3, battle in front of you sees 2 cars go sideways. You try to go around the outside, but unfortunately, Richard Simnor's wayward car collects you.
Yeah, I got a decent start. I got down the inside, and then I sort of was a bit conservative. I think it was Booth went into Simnor, and then I tried to go to the right of him, and it just like I just got boxed into between him and the wall. So, but luckily no contact with the wall. I kept all 4 corners on the car, and yeah, it was another back of the grid charge, which I'm pretty used to, so it was familiar territory. But yeah, unfortunate at the start, but it ended up sort of being lucky because it turned into sprint pole, fortunately.
Oh, indeed. I mean, bad luck in one race can be turned into good luck, like you say, in the feature race. And it was pole position in class. And in the end, it meant that you were given an opportunity really to bolt away a lightning start. You're getting very good at that. And from that point onwards, just managing the race.
Yeah, good start. I think I got it done into turn 1. And then I knew this race for me anyway was going to be a lot about time management, because at the end of the stint, I just know from the old car that it can you can overheat the tires and you can lose a lot of time at the end. So I was actually just trying to manage the tires at the start, and I don't know what was going on behind, whether they were fighting or battling, but I managed to gap them, break the toe, which is good. But yeah, managed until around like lap sort of 9, and then I saw the gold drivers behind me, and then started to push a little bit more, just enough to sort of hold them off. And then last lap, just tip turn around, try not to spin it. I've had Nova virus all week, so I haven't done any practice. So it was awesome to be able to get a good result. Maybe less practice is the key for me. Maybe I over practice. So practice makes permanent, not perfect, I guess.
Or perhaps, I mean, unfortunate that you have contracted norovirus, and I'm very sorry to hear that, and I hope you do feel better soon. I can hear it in your voice a little bit, feeling a bit stuffy, but one thing we did hear from Oscar Berntsson only moments ago, where he was talking to you in the debrief room, was the fact that you're having to do quite a bit of tyre saving towards the end. Just for the viewers and for myself, what's it like then in the feature race? So I imagine there's a window in which the tyres work well, but there is a point over the 30 minutes where they start to fall apart.
Yeah, so for me, it was tyre saving at the start, actually. So really just turning the TC up a bit, trying to like V a lot of the corners off instead of leaning on the tyres too much. A little, bit of lifting and coasting before the braking, just trying basically not to put too much temperature through the tyres. Sliding is probably the worst thing, so it's quite easy to slide these, so just being really careful on the throttle, short shifting. And that seemed to help towards the end of the stint. I had a bit more tyre life. But yeah, if you push too hard, and especially if you're fighting like in the mid pack, it's very easy to overheat them, and then it's pretty much impossible to get the temperature back down unless you back off massively. So being out front was a big blessing. The guys coming through the field had a much harder time with that. They did a phenomenal job.
Or fair play, and well, in the end for yourself, it was a smooth run to the finish, and overall win as well. It does mean that I believe you now become the first driver in this series' history not in the top class to take an overall win. I mean, you were going for it at Daytona, you came closer within 6,000s, but how does it feel now to become a record setter?
Yeah, really good. I knew it was going to be close at the end, so that's why I was just tyre saving at the start, and yeah, amazing. I feel like I've had good pace in a lot of these events, but I've just made a lot of sloppy errors. So yeah, this has definitely been some of the better pace that I've had along with Daytona. But yeah, just keeping consistent, I think, is the key for me, just to have these clean races. But yeah, it's awesome.
Well, absolutely brilliant performance from yourself. And of course, now we look ahead to the remaining rounds. And I do believe, based on when we spoke to you last week, you're missing the Hockenheim ring, and it's the season finale we'll see you at.
Yeah, Hockenheim, I'm going to be, I'll be watching, and then should be back for Adelaide, which that's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be absolute carnage. So we'll see what the championship situation is like in both gold and silver. Then I'm too far away. I think I've had too many mistakes to be in contention, but yeah, just hoping for a good, clean race in Adelaide, and hopefully not to get in the way of any of the championship fighting that's going to be going on.
All fair play. Well, to be fair to you, Matt, you might be a driver who ends up deciding which way the championship swings, given your pace and how you're able to grab the points. You never know, and we will see what may happen at Adelaide. But just before we do let you go, as always, is there anyone you'd like to give a mention or a shout out to?
Yeah, just the loyal fan base I have that tune in every week to watch me. Is Adam Roach, Ross Lawrence, and Alex Saunders. They're the Sprog faithful. So yeah, thanks again for watching.
Oh, fair play. Well, the Sprog faithful there would definitely appreciate that. Matt, we'll leave it there. Congratulations, Dave, on a brilliant overall and class win in the feature and a good recovery in the sprint. We'll see you at Adelaide in 2 weeks' time. But until then, my friend, have a great rest of your evening.
All right, cheers, mate. Take care.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, we've heard from Matt Sprell from the Silver Class, our HRT Nexus racing driver. Very happy with his performances today, albeit very interesting in his analytics on qualifying. Talking about the fact he could have done better, and in the end, perhaps felt there was more time out there. But he's always talking in the context of wanting to go higher. I'm particularly trying to chase the overall pole position rather than just being happy with the Silver Class pole position. I could definitely imagine if he was to come back from the grid for Season 2, and we'll talk more about that towards the end of the season, ladies and gentlemen. Nothing's official yet, but given how close the race has been this season, I'm sure you're going to be sat there thinking, is there going to be a Season 2? Well, we'll definitely have some news for you later on, but one thing I can definitely say is the fact if we were to see him on the grid for a Season 2, I can imagine right now he would be looking at the Gold Class and thinking, that's my place to shine, and I'm not going any lower. I'm only going higher. In the sprint race, unfortunately, things did go lower after he did try to take evasive action from the incident that occurred at turn number 3, but got caught up in it, but put on a recovery drive there and made sure that by finishing 9th, he'd be starting very front of the field for race number 2 and also right towards pole, at which then he stormed away to lead very early on. And for Matt Sproul at that point, it was about management early on and making sure that Oscar Berntsson was not able to get close and to prevent him from making series history by becoming the first silver driver to take an overall win. And he's finally done it. He missed out at Daytona, but he got it done here today. Florida definitely has been a happy hunting ground for Matt Sproul, and at Adelaide in 2 weeks' time, will we see him potentially become the driver who decides the championship in the silver class, given the fact he may be mathematically ineligible, but you never know what his results and the points he takes may do to those who feel as though it's all about the stakes. But with that, ladies and gents, unfortunately, we don't have any more drivers available today. We're going to have a quiet interview room. We've heard from 2 of our drivers, and we'll wrap up things there. But let's give you a recap of who we've spoken to. And as we can see, today we spoke firstly to Oscar Berntsson from the Ice Cold Racing by Max Sim Racing outfit. And, well, perfect points all the way, albeit not quite the perfect set of results. He missed out on the overall win in the feature, finishing 2nd, but taking all the points in the gold class. That's what he would have wanted. And then we did just hear from Matt Sproul, our silver star, who today, after taking pole, it all went a bit backwards in the sprint race, but he recovered well to 4th. And in the end, he was able to run away with the win in the feature and make history with an overall win as a silver driver. A huge thank you to both of them for their brilliant performances and also their chance and opportunity to catch up with them in the interview room, and we look forward to plenty more from these drivers and indeed all of our drivers as the season goes on into its final 2 rounds. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is sadly time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know more and indeed know how to get on the grid here at the Race by Wire, well, we can definitely tell you one thing. The best way to do so is to join via our official Discord. Invite link available on screen, and there you'll be in the beating heart of the community and you can get to know the drivers, the competitors, and also our staff and admin members. There's never been a better time to get on the grid at Race by Wire, particularly when we've got plenty more planned for 2026. We'd also like to say a big thank you to our series sponsor, Energise Virtual Solutions, and well, their web address, energisevirtual.com. Now, as we mentioned earlier, but we'll repeat again in case you didn't catch it earlier on today, Energise Virtual Solutions is a software consultancy whose aim is to meet the demands of bespoke product services and development. Where it's a completely new project or consultancy assistance on existing projects, Energise Virtual Solutions will be working alongside you every step of the way. And if you'd like to know more about their services and what they can offer you, do head to energisevirtual.com today. But with that, ladies and gents, as we pack up our bags and we finally leave the US of A for the final time this season, next time out for round number 9, we make our way back to the European continent, and it will be to the Hermann Tilke redesigned Hockenheimring Baden-Württemberg Grand Prix circuit, where we'll see our penultimate round take place. The racing will be on Wednesday the 25th of February 2026, and we come and invite you to join us and watch it live as we see exactly who's going to be leading the way. And in the gold class emerging from today, Matt Strand, not with all the points, but a good haul of them, he will take control of the lead as it all went a bit backwards and wrong for Commander Bjørklund, but Oscar Berntsson is trying to make amends for missing 2 rounds back-to-back and seeing whether he can steal away the crown. Meanwhile, in silver, Glenn Grondeliers was able to deliver a win in race number 1 and also was able to deliver 2nd place in the silver race of the second one of today. And the most important thing is he has been able to beat all his rivals in both races. That means right now he's opened up a lead, but can he keep the charging form of Adam Klanvik and Emilie Bay for 2 more rounds? Well, for all that and more, we'll find out. The story continues in a week's time, but until then, we have been the Race by Wire Porsche Cup. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh, and until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, as always, remember to stay on track. Good night.